What up, gamers? Welcome back, Dylan. Welcome back, Darko. Second rearrangement has hit the non-font setup. This one's more minor. I just switched which side of things were on, because I think this gives me kind of more room to not cover shit up. Previously, I was covering up too much of the shrimp in my Chikawa plushie that I won at an arcade. Unwatchable now. Yeah, unforgivable. And I think you can see Biden a little better now too. I also got, you guys know that the like sound panels, the wooden sound panels that every fucking YouTuber has. I got some of those. It's gonna be probably a few days before they're installed. But yeah. I don't think I got the what's up local. Welcome back. It's been a bit. The official most expensive luxury, the fucking professional ones that people get, but we got decent ones. Bro, I don't even know what the fuck ink ribbons are. I know, probably. And number 2. I don't fucking know. Germany probably makes some ink ribbons. Number 5. I feel like it wouldn't be the US. But maybe. How you handle the daily React list? I'm making a standalone archiving tool, wondering if you'd have a use for it. I mean, this is just a Notion page, and when I see shit, I just paste it in there. I don't really need to archive it. What's up, Gavin? I'll pay crypt to react to it. Oh, and I'll pay, huh? I don't know what that means, Gavin. Crypto? Why so late? What's up, Easy Money? My sleep schedule's fucked up, and people were watching the Super Bowl. I didn't want to stream during that because A, people would be busy, and C, and B, like my family is watching it and they're making noises. Did you watch it? No. I didn't even know it was today until like yesterday. Fuck it, Italy. Oh, not Italy. Oh, you know what? I bet it's fucking like Malaysia, and it's never Vietnam. I always want to say Vietnam. It's never Vietnam. Malaysia's number 7. I bet it's some Southeast Asian countries. So momentum, worst halftime ever, bro. I didn't even watch the halftime show. I've seen like a few clips of it on Twitter. I watched a tiny bit of the FIFA USA halftime show just because I wanted to see what it was. But what's football even about? You know, I don't really know. Could not tell you. Never been a sports guy. What's up, North? The moral superiority everyone has towards gambling on Twitter makes me want to die. Like, are you talking about the people like against sports betting or whatever? I'm assuming. What's your opinion? I don't have like super strong opinions, so a lot of this is gonna be based on more or less like intuition than oh, what's up, Shin? Than like hard data that I have. But I think generally like online gambling and or sports betting should have restrictions, should have to be a certain age, probably above 21. And I think there should be like some restriction on like you know, can they send you like a fucking push notification, you know, every game to try to make it more addictive? And, you know, can they recommend you bets that are like, you know, never, like, very low chance of ever paying off? Did the birds or not birds win? I don't even know. We out here? What's up, Sauce Rama? My only knowledge comes from my friend's Instagram story. And she just said, this is boring, no one has got a touchdown yet. Oh, this fucked the birds, the Seahawks, 29-13. I guess the birds won. You know, I used to, at my, like, elementary to middle school, I went to a school from kindergarten, the same school, kindergarten, 8th grade. We wore the, our logo was the fucking Patriots. It was the same, like, New England Patriots, the fucking thing that the football team is. Simply cannot be that you can die in the military and not be able to place a sports bet. Well, obviously, the benefit, I would hope you would concede, Easy Buddy, like the national security kind of benefit from having the system in place. Female on our Econ stream, never. like that is that allows 18-year-olds to be recruited, right? That has more positives on the positive side than sports betting, because like what is like the next best use of your money from sports betting is in many cases actually arguably a more rational use of that money. And the downside of not having like sports betting, or like just having some regulations on it or whatever, is, you know, people don't get to do that. They don't get to have, in some cases, maybe as much fun, but it might actually lead to better long-term outcomes for many people. And even for the people who like would do it responsibly, like it's just that like the next best alternative is not particularly fun. But like the next best alternative of not having a military or like not allowing recruitment in the way we do now is probably substantially worse. I guess, I mean, if you raise the age to 21 for the military, like that, maybe that wouldn't be like substantially bad. But betting in general, sports benefit almost certainly has negative welfare impact. Ooh, we got a paper. NBR paper has hit the chat. Gambling away stability. Sports betting impacts in vulnerable households. Also, you said something earlier. I forgot what it was. Just ban sports betting LMAO. What are the upsides of having it legal? I mean, it's just fun for people. How to do basic, intermediate, micro consumer choice? Oh, I don't. Why can't I just reason from the human action principle? I wouldn't actually. By the way, you saying that reminded me of something, but hold on. I don't actually know how to do the academic kind of parts of that. I could, I'm gonna know some of the principles, obviously, but a lot of anti-gambling people are just straight up Puritans. You might be overestimating the number of people who are that. All this is meant as an end to ban gambling. The number of responsible bettors far outweigh addicts. Yeah, but so it's just a question of, like, is sort of the cost to, like it obviously sort of the cost of the people who aren't responsible or whatever, for them is probably very large. So it's a question of, do those large losses to a few people outweigh like the small kind of diffuse benefits to people who are more responsible? You know, because again, like the next, I just don't think like the next best use of your money, if we ban sports betting or regulate it or whatever, is like substantially like makes you that much worse off. So what are the upsides of having legalized alcohol? People like alcohol. What are the upsides of having theme parks? People like theme parks. What kind of question is that? True. Oh, I think you're responding to Jen, I guess. We should raise the tax on alcohol. This is true. What's up, Saurus? Yo, what's up? Any burgers lose money today? I did. Am I not up to date on some lingo? We estimate the causal effects of online sports betting and household investment spending and debt management decisions using household transaction data and staggered difference in differences framework. Following legalization, sports betting spreads quickly, with both the number of participants and frequency of bets increasing over time. This increase does not displace other gambling or consumption, but significantly reduces savings as risky bets crowd out other positive expected value investments. These effects concentrate among financially constrained households. As credit card debt increases, available credit decreases, and overdraft frequency rises. Our findings highlight the potential adverse effects of online sports betting on vulnerable households. Whoa. American sources of poor greed. Oh, you know what? That makes sense. I support that source. I support that framing. Or you could never imagine American gambling abundance. True. Problem is, really, online gambling is the accessibility. Yeah, I don't like the, obviously, the more accessibility, the lower barrier to entry. And you're taking something that's already addictive, right? And the online aspect of it, I think a lot of those companies engage in kind of pretty shitty behavior to make it more addictive. Skip to the graph. Where are the graphs at? Where are the figures at? Whoa. I love graphs. I would hope, I don't know what the last thing Easy Money said was, but like, I would also hope that Easy Money would recognize, I understand you responded to the Shanna or whatever, but like, you know, theme parks are not really addictive in the same way gambling is. Alcohol can be addictive. I don't know if alcohol is a technically an addiction or dependency, because I know like marijuana is just a dependency. I don't know if I know people will say they're an addict to alcohol. I don't know if that's technically the right term. But the credit investor requirement for sports betting would be funny. That would be funny. It can be an addiction, I guess. I know there's like an actual like medical addiction versus dependence, like difference there. Okay, this is too academic. Just give me the Google Gemini summary. Addiction is a chronic behavioral brain disease characterized by compulsive drug seeking. Dependence is a physical bodily adaptation to a substance. Alcohol. Alcohol, there is calling it abuse. I mean, alcohol is one or two things that can kill you if you try to quit. Oh, yeah. So that might... But I think what matters is like the brain feedback reward system thing. I don't know, it doesn't matter. What's up, Trotsky? Watch like the first 15 minutes of that Trump economy panel. These people are actually not the same species as the rest of us. Oh, I know. Kill me, dude. God, it's frustrating too. Or getting so shy, whatever. I don't have that much to do with anything. It's frustrating too. There's like so many things that like I just like don't get to respond to. Read last message. We want to decrease the amount of addicts. We should raise the cost of gambling. That means only the most addicted people will gamble, and people who responsibly consume will be cut off. So I don't think, obviously I would hope that you would recognize Like, that might be somewhat of an argument. I could see that being an argument as, like, a, whatever, tax against gambling. But, like, what I suggested, which I don't think would be subject to, like, nearly the, or not the same scale of the problem. I recognize there would almost always be people who would find a way to gamble, right? But, you know, I said shouldn't. What did I... Don't raise the cost of gambling. That means only bust it. But I mean, I'm just saying. You understand my argument or my position that I gave to you when you asked, which just, you know, it seems like obviously, like a lot of companies do engage in this kind of shitty practice of making an already addictive practice more addictive, and it's more easily accessible online. So we should probably, I think there's some regulation justified there. We see Ross just torture the non-fun view rates with philosophy. Oh yeah, I saw this happened. You want me to watch this timestamp? I don't really. How philosophy young? Yes, I don't actually know what they. Yeah, I saw Charsky tweeted about it. You tweeted about it. I don't actually know who this Jesse dude is. Or at least not off the top of my head. Excellent debate. Total Spafford victory. Who is this dude? I don't know. Depends on more traditional view that we have a natural property rights and familiar with Michael Humer and his position there. Defends a egalitarian view, arguing that we have rights against people using resources in ways to make us worse off. We can check that out later, maybe. More interesting than slop, for sure. He's my goat, social, anarchist, analytic philosopher based. How do I can fucking how do we make chat message go away? Whatever. There we go. I hate everything. By the way, I have no fucking clue how Tyler was screaming at me about the paper that, again, I'm pretty sure I told him about, and I had to make sure I was not making shit up and being gaslit. I want to be clear to people. Okay, the number Arthur John Hansen cites in their text. Okay, just to be clear, in their text, this is the number. They have other specifications that have higher numbers, right? But the number they cite in their text was the number I cited, 1.5 million. You know, they say 48,000 is with regard to the reduction in manufacturing employment between 1990 and 2000, a further reduction of 982,000 between 2000 and 2017. You can add those up. That's 1.5 million. They do the work for you down here. 1.53 million workers. Okay, I just want to be clear. I was right there.
EMP. Yeah, I'm sorry. If EMPs go off tomorrow, I'm gonna go out.
I just want to be clear. Like, manufacturing job growth is down. It's continued on its downward trend.
Incentives to stay. We are getting cheaper and cheaper offshoring service.
I don't know whether no general equilibrium model they provide. I think it was before that.
To you.
I just want to be clear. Like,
control over the
tech bros get,
and they don't. And I
about the oil.
Bruh, let me find a transcript. General equilibrium has been debunked. True. What's up, Copied? Okay, welcome back. Oh, this is ADH. Yeah, ADH slop. But it's not even. I don't even care that much about the Arthur Dorn Hansen slop. Okay, I don't even care that much about it. Okay, I don't even care. It's the fact that I'm pretty sure I am the one that told him about that paper. And I don't even think he could tell me the name of it if I asked. Prior to me telling him. Like, in this debate, I mean. Like, prior to me saying the name. not fun. You absolutely cook these dudes. True. I usually never admit that, but you literally annihilate these dudes. Well, I appreciate it, Gavin. But it's just... It's the fact that he's, like, trying to gaslight me about something that... I know, like, a lot more than him about this.
3 million
no offense.
jobs, 2 million tech jobs because we're offshoring overseas.
Totally false. You have no evidence for that.
Oh yeah, your study says 2.4, buddy.
Nope.
I've seen more ones.
Nope.
Yeah, it does.
Wait,
It
no.
does,
First
yeah.
of all, also, this is in an earlier debate, he referred to this, or I think it was his video, he referred to this as my best study. To be clear, this is the worst study. This is the worst study for me. I cited to him in like a way earlier panel saying, even if I take like the worst study, you know, it's 25% of manufacturing job losses were from the China shock. Timu Destiny, I'm crying. Dude, yeah, I only noticed that when I rewatched it. Not to downplay non-fun performance, but these are all regards. That's true, Dylan. Why don't you go into panels with more informed people like Economist or like Oren Cass? Yeah, Oren Cass is not really doing these debate panels, bro. I mean, Oren Cass has like been on some podcasts and stuff I've seen, but you know. Well, what's the there's something I missed. The fucking... Did you see Clav getting arrested for 1 pill of Adderall? This country has gone to hell. No, I did not. There just aren't economists who do this and are pro-Trump. That's... Well, yeah, that's true as well. It's like, you know, the people willing to sell out to Trump are the people in his administration, and you know, I'm not reaching out to Kevin Hassett or Stephen Bassett anytime soon. You need to upload more? That's true. I hate editing. I will never edit. Didn't Clab also stamp someone with a truck? Yeah. What did you think about Oren Cass's NYT opinion piece on finance? I only saw, I think, the Brian Price Theory guy tweet about it. I didn't actually read it. But, I mean, Oren Cass gonna Oren Cass, bro. Apparently having a fake ID is a felony. I'm pretty sure it's been that way for a while. When are you debating Kevin Warsh on Fed policy? That'd be goated. I don't actually know like how much I like. Well, from my understanding, I probably don't disagree with him about the very like fundamental point that the Fed's balance sheet is too large and kind of plays too big of a role in there's a more specific term I'm looking for, but like in financial markets because we're, you know, ample reserve system and the such, and yeah. I think it is funny that he was freaking out about inflation during 2008 because of QE though. We need more Straffa Hitler synthesis people in these panels. Trump is good because PK growth theory or whatever. Dude, I mean, Tyler is like not crazy far off from that. It's a little far off. And he really likes Israel, so not aligned with those types there. I got a guy in a panel saying he rejects old neo-Kantian. Yeah, I know, dude, that was so funny. When Grid was like, fucking, that's why I hate all these fucking neo-Keynesians who just want to print a bunch of money and do socialism. It's like, bro, what are we on about? It is, yeah, it is Austrian theory. It is Austrian, and then defending tariffs was so funny. I know him saying fucking Trump is doing more Austrian stuff. Okay, by the way, I don't think this is really going to be India, but I'm guessing India. But Japan, I could have guessed Japan. France, US, Germany. Whatever. It's actually funny because neo-Kantians are praxeologists. Just like neo-Keynesians, bro. Don't you know? Where's my Oh, shit, it's far away. I have the like New Keynesian's economic textbook. I don't know. You know, I must have missed the chapters grids we were talking about. Okay, 22 billion, a bunch of gold, oil, and cacao beans. I'm assuming it's like somewhere in Africa. Oh, fuck me. Benin, I think is... Oh my god. Ivory Coast. There we go. Okay. Woohoo. Goated. Was never difficult. Okay. Real quick. This thing. Infinite Gretchen Whitmer death, bro. What are we doing, bro? Oh. What are we doing? With property taxes going up year after year, Michigan seniors deserve stability. They've worked hard and earned the right to relief in their golden years. Kill me! Fuck this girl, bro. I was gonna say bitch, but I respect women and I caught myself. I made this Rafa Hitler suggestion because those people are genuinely smarter than Austrial slop at 88 fits other standards. True. Tax homeowners into oblivion. It's just true, and especially a boomer homeowners, bro. Dude, you see that fucking... Dude, that post on Twitter a little bit ago that went viral, that was like some... like Colorado boomer, like texting his son, oh my god, I have to pay like $8,000 in property taxes this year. And it's like, if you do the math, it's like a $1.5 million fucking home that he's paying that on. It's like, dog. Ugh. Gretchen Whitmer proposed a $90 million property tax break for Michigan seniors in her February 11th state budget presentation, according to records released to the Detroit Free Press by her office. The new property tax credit would be the second major Whitmer tax initiative aimed at seniors. Oh my god. In legislation she signed in 2023, Whitmer and her legislator did away with what became known as the Snyder pension tax. Michigan seniors worked hard, played by the rules, and lived on fixed incomes, deserve stability. Taxation is theft. You wouldn't let someone mug your grandma. This is true. Just move. True. Just downsize. You don't need your fucking 3-bedroom home no more. As costs on the basics go up because of national economic uncertainty, we should work together to provide real relief to our seniors. In my budget this year, I'm proposing property tax relief for our seniors to save them hundreds of dollars a year, putting money back in their pockets they can use for groceries, gas, or gifts for the grandkids. I'm sure. This is the real trickle-down economics that right here, okay. Tax cuts for seniors so they give money to grandkids. You know what? Maybe that, you know, I'm not against some, you know, tax cuts and such, but I wonder if I bet there's more you know, trickle down there than from a corporate tax cut. I don't even like corporate tax. I don't know. It probably depends on how mobile capital is. So I think the old propaganda has gone too far. I agree. TBLC overstepped its mandate, but we should give preferential treatment to the elderly. In what sense? I agree. We should give preferential treatment to the elderly in that, like, they should get pension money, right? I agree with that. There might be... What's up, Idol Expert? Would you support age cap for voting and get rid of stuff like this, but you'd get like 30 Zorhans? Nah, probably not. Probably not. You know, I like, okay, my pro-market anti-tax boomers out there. It's just a shame the most salient tax of them is... I know Total Boomer. Yeah, I know. I've read the article. Easy Money. I know. Michiganders 65 and over would be eligible for property tax refunds up to 10%. If approved by legislator, plan could provide tax relief to more than 355,000 seniors, saving eligible households an average of $345 a year. Whoa. Due to major break in the Whitmer 2023 law that returned taxation of private pensions to what existed before Snyder's 2011 budget. Whitmer says those changes saved about 500,000 Michigan seniors an average of $1,000 a year. The term pension tax is a bit of a misnomer. The legislation passed under Snyder didn't create a new tax, but removed a total and partial tax exemption for income from public and private pensions, respectively. Oh my god. People born before 1946 were exempted from the change, and there was a phase-in for other seniors. Kill me. We can age cap voting and also make people do calculus questions to requirement to vote. You know, I might be in favor of that. We need a cultural revolution style thing where the state just lets young people force old people out of their homes and homes. This is true. This is true. Just say more grammar or work in the mines. Listen, you know, like I said, I don't mind even, you know, a public pension, okay? You know, I don't mind some government like mandated savings. Like I want that. I don't think elderly people should be in poverty. I don't mind some welfare, okay? But it's just a little silly. Little kind of stupid, silly, dumb, stupid. Keep the transfer payments, take their homes. I agree with this. Medicare isn't perfect, but it stopped the cycle of older people dying of destitution when they ran out of money to pay their medical bills. I thought you... Wait, hold on, just real... Okay. Just real quick, easy money. Do you understand that's exactly my argument with, like, the ACA? It's like, yeah, the Affordable Care Act is not perfect. I recognize that, you know, we made insurers not discriminate anymore, and the sort of back-end risk adjustment subsidies probably don't work perfectly and fully offset that. I'm just saying, you know, ACA isn't perfect, but it stopped the cycle of people with pre-existing conditions getting just entirely fucked over, and poor people more generally getting entirely fucked over. And that probably outweighs any of the costs associated with increased premiums, because insurers have to, or, you know, can't price risk as a, can't really price risk anymore. Like, you know. Oh, this meme. You know what else is dumb and stupid? This shit again. You get to the... I don't know. I don't actually know how you would feel about the institutional home buying section of the Trump debate, Charsky, because I love my institutional home buyers, all right, but they were just they like just could not understand like supply and demand during that section at all. It was super frustrating. But the problem with the ACA was the distortion, impact of distortions were bigger than the benefits. That isn't really the case with Medicare. I just like haven't seen evidence of that with the ACA. I think it's crazy to me it's okay for people with pre-existing conditions to just be poor forever. Like, yeah, I mean, I just care about the sort of instrumental benefits through distribution. I don't care about institutional home buyers. They're probably better than like small-time landlord base. Let's go. Yeah, I like these fuckers cannot tell me why supply curves slope upward. Okay, or assume to. You might have issues with the increasing marginal cost assumption, and I haven't looked super far into that to be fair, but
just way outside our budget.
Are there any other options? Well, there is one option. You could time travel to 1980 when the average home in California cost $100,000. How would we even?
You shouldn't have to go back in time to find a home you can afford in California. I'm going to stop Wall Street speculators from buying up homes so regular families don't get priced out.
Who was that?
I think it was...
Kill me. There's no... This guy is almost certainly not going to win, right? Is there a polymarket odds thing? Do supply curves slope upward? Neoclassical propaganda non-fun? And may I know? I mean, I've not looked that far into it. My understanding is that there are a large number of firms that like report constant or in some cases decreasing marginal cost. Okay, but that's just my understanding, and I would imagine it differs across markets. Wasn't he in the 2020 Dem primary? I honestly don't know. Okay, wait, hold on. I don't even think this guy is like... He's at 4%. Let's go. What's up, Grand Size Enjoyer? Welcome back to politics. Oh yeah, no, this is hamsters. I read well, I skimmed this. I've seen this paper. I recognize this. I'm betting it all on him. The populist flop will still pulling higher than Fishback. The populist flop will win the Californian voters over. Ooh. Okay, I do where I want to check this out and then we can watch this probably. Alpha, what are your thoughts on hamsters having more Twitter followers? I think !X in chat. You guys should all go follow me on Twitter right now. Oh, hold on. Let me send in the kick chat too. I mean, you know, obviously, it makes sense. He's like more sort of in that like Substack, Twitter circle than I am. I'm in the Discord slop debates circle. So I Twitter mog, unfortunately. That is true. You do have like, I don't know how many followers you have, but you do have, I know you have like 3 or 4 like pretty viral tweets that have like over 40k likes. Now, Fishback would say he's a victim of political violence after someone set fire to his lawn. Oh, I saw that he tweeted like someone tried to burn my house down. I don't know how big of a deal that was. It didn't really. It did not look that bad to me. Someone tried to set my house on fire. And it's like a picture of the like furthest possible part of the lawn that you could set on fire. And I don't even know what is. I mean, it's not necessarily that I don't believe him, but there are other plausible explanations for a fire. Also, you guys know, I think most of you guys here will probably know, but it's very funny that James Fishback has me blocked. Yes, you and I both endorsing it. That's not true. That's not true. Twitch or YouTube or Kick might not care. Fishback hater is against wild animal suffering. Patriot, this wouldn't happen if he had AstroTurf. This is true. Let's go. Let's go. Insect suffering reduced. Let's fucking go. I posted this on Twitter earlier today, like literally like 2 hours ago. I'm gonna try to debate Fishback. There's no fucking way. First of all, he seems to be interested in grooming some of the younger people he debates. So I don't know about. I don't know if I want to do that. But there's no way that that would not be feasible. Maybe before he started running for governor, and you know he had his like debate club thing or whatever. Oh no, maybe then, but I don't think he would come on the fucking non-fun stream right now. Nothing. Give your thoughts on logical positivism now. I honestly could not even define that for you without looking at it. Once I've heard people say it before. I think once I look it up, I'll recognize some of it. But foreign positivism developed by members of the Vienna Circle is considered that the only meaningful philosophical problems are those which can be solved by logical analysis. Oh no. Doesn't make sense why you're so against fishback. White nationalism is logical. What? It doesn't make sense why I'm so against fishback. White nationalism is the logical conclusion of MAGAism. Voters should see that for themselves and Dems because I don't want bad things to happen. Like, I don't like fishback because I think he'll do bad things. Sometimes people doing bad things will lead to more good things happening later on. But I would prefer if we just did the good things. like maybe like Trump doing the Medicaid cuts will like lead to some you know, big win in Democrats for the midterms. But I oppose, as a matter of policy, like the cuts to Medicaid. And it's possible that the expected value in some cases is positive there if you do something bad and it leads to more good things later on. But that's kind of not the analysis I'm doing when I say like whether I'm for or against a certain policy or politician. I don't know who Hakeem Jeffries is really hated, is he? Fishback is maybe the most hated national politician other than Mike Lee. Does he count as a national? Does Fishback really count as a national politician? Does he really? Does he really? Does he? Does he? Really grant him such a status yet? I don't know. I don't think he deserves that. At least not quite yet. Mike Lee's liked by the Mormon cattle? No. Liked enough? I know he's somewhat liked by Gen Zers. He's in a national... Well, that's true. Consciousness, yeah. But I have no clue if anyone else likes him. And I also don't... I kind of doubt even the Gen Zers that like say they like him, really like him enough to go out and vote. I support Fishback. Evil. Evil. Okay. We can keep chatting, of course, but I'm gonna start reading this now. It's about some of Trump's equity deals with like Intel and stuff. Also, doesn't Ted Cruz exist? I feel like people really hate that guy. People do really hate Ted Cruz, at least a decent number of people. But he's probably still popular within like Republicans. Especially now that he kind of is not like really against Trump anymore. What is YAF? YAF's Obscure Freedom Summit is 60% Groypers. Con Inc. is cooked. Ooh, I don't know. What am I looking at? Our guest room is 60-40 groupers, non-groupers, and pretty much along the gender line, I've heard about 10 blatantly anti-Semitic comments. There are 5 other Jews here, and they all also overheard comments. Michael Knowles was talking about the elite sucking the blood of the life of our country. They were playing a video about how Ben Shapiro and the Holocaust, and at least 40 people were laughing. There's definitely a lot of traditional conservatives, but definitely not the majority. I've worn my star the whole time, and it feels just as bad as peak encampment. I did not think it would be nearly as bad at all. It's a major conservative org. Okay. I mean, it's not surprising to me. This guy's a streamer? Oh no. At anti-woke streams. Dude, let's go. Dude, how do I join the anti-woke streams? Oh, he doesn't even have any of his videos. Alright, I'm drunk and I'm gonna argue with people who argue with people, but I love you non-fun even if we got evil politics is a stretch, okay? Goddamn. Goddamn. But I read stop and by Chosky. Wait, Elon Omar says Hubby's firm was worth up to 25 million, but Biz partner told court it was worth jilts. Business partner testified in a bankruptcy case that it's worth almost nothing, raising questions about who's telling the truth. Wait, why? So, hold on. Why does this matter? Wouldn't it make her look worse if NVC about what North? Doesn't that make her look worse if it's worth more? Isn't that it's like, oh, fucking rich congressman, like, you tried to brag about her net worth, but why would you want to do that as an elected official? That makes you look worse. Was this before she was elected? I'm gonna discuss the economic stimulus of DoorDash. Okay, a second. I think GDE just hates Omar lol, the New York Post slop. Yeah, well, I know GDE does not like... I'm not aware of anyone they do like, honestly. Anti-farmer stuff has gone too far. Impossible. I wonder if there's any reason a country might want to ensure it has a steady supply of food from within its borders. So, I don't even think, like, the, like, outside purpose of many of the subsidies they receive is even that anymore. It's like the outside purpose in many of them is, like, just to offset the effects from the tariffs or to otherwise, like, just grant them like some artificial benefit, and then obviously some of the like subsidies and shit they receive is outwardly for that, but in reality probably does not do much to ensure that. And they just have horrible political positions. Obviously the ones that do animal agriculture kind of evil in my opinion, but you know. What's up? Wow. You're muted, buddy.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry, I was talking to my roommate.
Yeah.
What is the economic stimulus of delivering one burger 45 miles with DoorDash?
I mean, I don't really think that's...
Is that like an
stimulus.
economic stimulus, or is that like a detriment to the economy?
That, I mean, that presumably is a, like... I wouldn't say... Usually, that's not what people mean by stimulant, but presumably it is, like, good, and you're kind of implicitly saying that, like, the next best use of your time and the next best use of whoever bought its money, like, was worse than this or whatever. Now, like there could be, like, issues with, like, externalities from driving the car and polluting the environment, which would, you know, make it better to not do it, or, like, issues with taxes, like, maybe instead of he's buying the burrito instead of saving because the tax on savings
This is a
too
burger
high.
from Buffalo Wild Wings, by the way.
Well,
Very
you see,
important
you know,
information, I know.
Yeah, this is bad because there's clearly an externality from the
animal farming.
buffalo, the animal farming.
Yeah, that's what I did. They literally made me go to the next city over in order to deliver this Buffalo Wild Wing order. I got paid $26 to do it. I don't know how I feel about it. I spent
Huge.
a fucking hour in my car trying to get there. Oh, no. I kind of lured you in saying I wanted to talk about the economic stimulus of DoorDash. I really want to talk about the upcoming South Carolina Unfuck America tour.
That's
that
true.
You're going to, which you should donate to non-fund so that you can be able to afford to go, because obviously he's a broke bitch. And,
You know,
they
they finally refunded my fucking hotel today. And then in 3 days, I'm gonna spend the same amount of money.
Yeah, I just got enough that I can buy a hotel for the one day. So
Don't even fucking you just stay in our fucking. It's a fixed cost, okay? Economics, fixed cost. I am buying it no matter how many people stay in it. And therefore, there's no really marginal cost to adding you. We're just expanding output based. What are you gonna confront him about? I don't know. I mean, I could talk to him about healthcare, maybe, because we might have some disagreements there. I could maybe do the immigration thing, but I haven't seen him kind of do what I don't like he does with the full employment thing in a while. So I don't know.
I am going to debate him on the prosecution of MAGA Republicans after this term, specifically because he wants to have sort of like a Nuremberg style reckoning where you're just going to take the leaders of everyone who's complicit and you just throw them all in jail and just throw the book at them. And I would argue that if Trump uses his basically almost broad, unchecked power to pardon people, that it would be basically impossible to prosecute anyone. And it might mean that you would have to violate the Constitution in order to do so. And I will argue the merits of that. And that, basically, our system is not designed to be able to handle corruption at this scale. We're just all the way at the top of the president, all the way down. We are, and if you want to
I'm not sure.
introduce new prosecution, then you're going to need to reform the system. But then you can't retroactively, after you reform the system, go back and prosecute people for things that weren't, pre-reform, because that's just not how that works.
I'm not sure he would say if they got pardoned, we should prosecute them anyway. He might have said that before. Honestly, it wouldn't particularly surprise me, but he might just reject it on that.
Well, we'll see. I'm pretty sure he'll try to fight me on that. I think there's a specific argument that he can take. Sorry, I'm cleaning my room while also talking to you. There's a specific argument you can take because there's I forget what it is. It's like if you get charged and convicted of treason through like some sort of congressional hearing, I think I'm remembering that correctly.
Sure.
It's like you can't hold office again. And his argument is like the pardon power can't like prevent you from doing that. But I would argue that the Supreme Court probably
holding office, I guess.
The Supreme Court is probably so the power to pardon is so broad, and basically there's like no restrictions on it whatsoever, that the Supreme Court probably will argue that you can't even prevent people from holding office.
He might just say pack the court at that point.
Pack the court, but then that gets into an argument of like, then what's the point of having like a constitution at all if you're just gonna have a body of yes men who will just do whatever they want, do whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you want competency or do you want like yes men? Yeah.
The argument would be we've already crossed that line. Obviously, we need to try to rectify that stuff, but I don't know. I don't have super strong positions on it. I do think, like, you should try to, like, I mean, you should try to go after a number of crimes. I don't know, like, I don't know to what extent I'm comfortable with, like, the president, for example, like, ordering the DOJ to try to do stuff. I don't think I would, like, I don't think at this point, like, I would mind, like, the next Democratic president, like, saying to the, like, attorney general or whatever, like, hey, just to be clear, like, this is something you can do. I'm not worried about you doing it, and like I would prefer that you investigate the Venezuelan boat strikes or investigate the
the
something or
president can already
whatever,
do that.
but-
Like the president can
Well,
direct
they-
the DOJ
yeah,
to
I know
investigate
they
certain things.
can,
Like that,
but
that's
that's
not like an
typically-
unprecedented thing like before Trump. It's more the fact that Trump is so interconnected with the DOJ that it's not just like saying go investigate that. It is that person is guilty. You need to punish them. It's
like I understand they can, and like since the immunity ruling, that's all like official, like inclusive and pre-inclusive authority, so they can't even, no one can really even like legally get mad at a lot of that stuff. But I don't think that's how. Like I think obviously, generally, it's preferable for the DOJ to act essentially independently. So
I would argue that it can act independently, but they're also probably like as a criticism I have of the Biden administration was they were a little bit too independent, if that makes any sense. Like they were a little bit too lenient when it comes to like pushing forward and making sure like all the, especially the federal prosecution and like anything related to J6, it just kept getting delayed until the election. And then once the election came, then he won and they just permanently pushed it out. Now it's completely, all of it's basically thrown out. So there's obviously, there's probably a happy middle ground when it comes to that, but you know. I
understand why Biden was concerned about that. Dude, there was a, but yeah, I mean, I don't like Merrick Garland that much or anything, but I had a mock that was debating some dude on CNN or whatever. I forget the exact context even, but like, Adam was like, if Biden replaced Trump's portrait with like a portrait of like his mugshot or something, like you would be like, crying about
outraged.
It or whatever. Yeah. And then he was like, no, I'd expect that. And I was like, bro,
but
like,
it didn't happen.
It's number one, but like of all the things, of all like the flaws Biden has, okay, like doing like that type of like personal attack or whatever, it's just like not something he does really. Like
yeah, well, not to like the scale that Trump does. Like, I think Biden made a speech talking about like how Trump is going to use the federal government and weaponize it against like the American people or something like that, or use the American military against.
So there was that one speech at Philadelphia.
Definitely not at the
Hall.
scale of like what Trump does or any other politician really has done, like pre-2016.
Kel, thanks for the gifted membership, Shipringo, and welcome back. Oh my god, Eggman got it. Eggman used to watch me like 3 years ago, my fucking gaming days. Like there was, I like this, it's kind of old by now. There's like this Substack post, the fundamental decency of Joe Biden. And I think he just like talks about like 2 times where, oh yeah, when he was asked like, whether Biden was disappointed that Ron DeSantis wouldn't meet with him during the one of the hurricanes that he went down to. And Biden was like, oh, I'm not disappointed or whatever. He said that he didn't think DeSantis had political reasons, even though DeSantis probably did have political reasons to not get a picture of Biden. But,
I think a better example would be, have you ever seen that clip of Biden interacting with the MAGA guy with the Trump hat? And then they switch hats with each other. Like, that was a really sweet clip. And honestly, that it kind of humanized him a little bit. People in the media like to portray him as one way or another. It kind of just made me feel bad about him. But it felt like everything in the Biden administration was kind of like half done and not very, like, you can call it like restraint and you can call it like, him respecting the office of the presidency for what it should be. And that should be, not something really proactive, but serving at the behest of Congress and whatever. But you can see like how Biden sort of reacted with Israel and with Ukraine as well, where he was putting the weapon restrictions on like the weapons that we're sending to Ukraine, like saying, oh, you're not allowed to use these above like a certain kilometers out, or you're not allowed to hit like native Russian territory. And then Trump came into office and Ukrainians just literally instantly were starting to shell or drone strike oil refineries and all that. Which
Yeah,
I think that's like a legitimate criticism you can have. And then another thing is like I still don't know where I land with how Trump has handled Israel-Palestine. I've heard a lot less news about it since the supposed ceasefire. I don't know if it's holding or not. I don't know if it's actually like hostilities are like winding down or not. But I don't know. Do you think you could give Trump credit for ending the Israel-Palestine conflict, or is that just something that naturally ran to its conclusion just during his administration?
I'm not sure exactly. I think like all else equal, like, you know, that like because Trump is like less concerned about Israel like showing restraint, right? That like I do like I would imagine, you know, Hamas was kind of more like scared or whatever, and so like part of their calculus was, you know, Donald Trump's not gonna do the same type of stuff of like weapons freezes. Now, like I think that results from sort of a bad trait about Trump, which is that he kind of just does not care about
he doesn't give a shit.
Civilian casualties there or whatever. But I imagine that was part of their calculus. Now, I don't think I don't know what Kamala would have done exactly. I imagine we also would have gotten a ceasefire at some point during Kamala's term, even if it took longer. And I think it probably would have been.
It's more of a matter of it feels like, for better or for worse, Trump does things I'd say 99% of the time for the worse because he's fucking retarded, but he does go through things. And
yeah, and I think so. My understanding,
you throw things at a wall, eventually something's gonna stick.
Yeah, of the ceasefire too is like, as with most ceasefires here, it's like both sides will claim that like all of them, like you know, they each violated it, or the other side violated it first or whatever. And like there's plenty of like violations, but it's still like relatively low scale. And I don't think it ever really went to like the full phase 2 stuff, but I could be wrong.
Oh,
no, so I think there's like all of the ceasefires are like, we agree to phase 1, which is like Israel withdraws its troops to this border, and like, you know, they release some of the hostages, and then phase 2, you know, we'll actually do the disarming or whatever, and it like never.
No, the disarming was never going to happen. But as long as there's no like active conflict anymore, then that's probably as good as we're going to get it. I mean,
well, I understand. Yeah, there's like less active conflict. There's still some strikes and stuff that go on, to my understanding, but. Like if I just look up constant ceasefire broken, I'm sure there's like some strikes that have happened. I mean, the first thing that comes up is Al Jazeera. I don't know how much. I don't know how much.
I would not trust Al Jazeera on anything. I trust Al Jazeera as much as I trust the Indian Times. If you're familiar with that source.
I'm not actually.
They're like, you know those like Reddit accounts that like post news and they're completely unverified? It's like breaking news. China is like declared war on Pakistan or something like that. It's just like completely bogus. It's like, imagine that, but for like, they post news articles online. That's like the Times of India.
Based, let's go.
I remember specifically learning about them because it was, what was it? It was Destiny posted a troll post about him being banned off Twitch when in reality it was like years ago, and it was they bought the bait, and I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I do. I remember that. I don't remember it. Yeah, I forget. Okay, it looks like I think they're like negotiating phase 2 right now. It looks like, but who knows how far that'll actually get. And then there have been. It says 450 Gazans have been killed since the start of the ceasefire in October, and I imagine there's been there probably haven't been like Israeli citizens killed or anything, but I imagine there's been like rocket launches in response to that.
Well,
but that's a lot less.
I mean,
than...
like that's the rocket launches were primarily like Hezbollah, right? That wasn't like a Hamas sort of thing.
No, they Hamas's rockets are kind of but they have rockets. I think that it's like the Houthis and Hezbollah like have missiles which are like guided and have computers, and Hamas has rockets which are explosives and fuel that are guided.
Rockets.
And yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, because I'm pretty sure almost all of that Iranian funding has just been like eviscerated. It's just gone because Iran is like crumbling as a regime. They can barely hold on to their own state, much less be able to fund Hezbollah and the Houthis and all that, and Hamas. So
yeah, I don't know if there's been rockets, but I mean, it's, like I said, like when I just look up Hamas rockets post October ceasefire, like the first thing that comes up is, Israel strikes Gaza as both Israel and Hamas accuse each other of breaching ceasefire. Like it's what it fucking always is. Every ceasefire in 2000 and in 2014 that they also basically had the same thing, where it's like both sides will accuse each other of breaking it first, and it's hard to even know what exactly happened.
we'll know in 100 years. By then, no one will care.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know for sure to this day if we can determine, like, in the cases where the ceasefires in like 2008 were violated, like who actually violated them first.
Well, the way that I understand is that usually those documents don't get released until like all the people who are currently in power just like die. So.
Oh yeah, well yeah, like I know Israel releases documents, at least some of them, like they declassify them after 30 years, but it might be a thing of like, oh, these soldiers like reported this thing, but like we don't even know for sure if we can like trust them. There's no like physical evidence or whatever. I imagine some of it's gonna be that stuff, but because we declassified like our documents on the Gulf of Tonkin, however you pronounce that incident, but like people still dispute.
Gulf of Tonkin, I think.
Yeah, the Vietnam one. But people still dispute, even with those declassified documents, what exactly happened. I think we know the second incident was basically made up, but people still dispute.
Yeah.
The first one.
I generally, in my opinion, I agree with the official declassified report that the first one was legitimate, and then the second one was pretty much fake. And then Congress wiped their hands clean of it and said the president can do what they want in Vietnam. And now today we can't even get that. The president just acts without the consent of Congress. Shit's fucked.
Yep.
Are you gonna do a fan meetup in South Carolina?
Yeah, it's just a non-fun fan meetup, guys. Dude, you know what's funny? I like to make a promotional banner or whatever for like Twitter. I just like photoshopped, my face in the banner that UFA made.
I saw that.
It's like they're still asking. I think they're being serious. Like, who the hell is this third guy? I don't think people. I have to make it more clear. I'm like,
they didn't know it was you.
Yeah, this is the official non-fun fan meetup, guys. If you're going to the UFA event at the University of South Carolina on February 13th, come grab a selfie. North will be there too, hopefully.
Yeah,
Isaac,
hopefully.
I believe, probably will be there. And I'll be streaming it there. Meet with your biggest fans, Manar and Localist. I don't think I know where Localist. I know Localist lives in like Illinois. I don't think he's coming down to this, unfortunately. Manar, I'm pretty sure, lives in Syria. Oh no, he's from Syria. He might not live in Syria anymore. I kind of hope he doesn't live in Syria anymore.
My biggest fear is that I'm going to show up to the event. Do I have to pay, by the way? It's a free event,
No, it's
but I'm
free.
pretty sure you can pay for some of these events you can like pay to get like a spot.
You can pay
reserved.
for Myron Gaines's shit, but the
Fuck Myron Gaines, honestly.
UFA thing is all free.
Sorry, no. He can live a long and prosperous life outside of politics.
Yeah. I think I actually don't. He might have delayed his event too, but he might have still had it. Oh no, they delayed it too. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can pay for Myron Gaines' like VIP tickets. It's like $200 for a fucking dinner with Myron Gaines.
I'm concerned about buying a $150 hotel. I don't even know if I want to buy $200 to that commies. Fuck.
Yeah.
I just hope that have you watched some of the other Unfuck America streams that they've done before? Yeah. They're scuffed. Almost every single one of them has like something wrong with it, and I fear that if I try getting on, I'll be audioless or something like that.
Well, my stream won't be scuffed.
Yeah,
so
I still need to install software on my phone to. I don't think I'm gonna directly stream. I'm gonna try to get a what do they call it, where you like stream to another platform and that platform uploads it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll figure it out. I'll have it ready. YouTube.com/@NorthIsLive. That's where you'll see me live. And then to go to realrepublican.com if you want to support the Real Republican cause. It'll prompt you to download an app. I don't know what that is doing, but I still appreciate your support.
Okay.
All right, my shilling is over. Have a good stream, Don Fun.
All right, appreciate it. Based. You should go to nonfon.gg and follow me on all my platforms that I list there. Okay. Nonfon, what's your opinion on people? Also, I think I welcomed you when you gave me a gifted membership, but welcome back, Springo. Do you want me to talk? I can talk about interest on excess reserves. He was arguing with that in me in DMs. What's your opinion on people who use terms like sports ball and goy ball? In my opinion, that's some of the worst and most annoying people to be around. I have actually never heard anyone use the term goy ball before. So, you know. I might complain about sports ball, but in the context of you placing it next to goy ball, sports ball is not sounding too bad. Nice one, Chipringo. Alright, is it not even that long? Okay, we're into this. The Trump administration loves equity stakes. Only 1 year into his term, the federal government has utilized some form of equity instrument with multiple deals with companies across industrial sectors. MP Materials, Intel, Lithium Americas, US Steel, Trilogy Metals, Vulcan Elements, and Re-Element Technologies. The administration has reportedly considered additional stakes in other companies. Anthem officials have even floated participating in the upside of patent revenue derived from government grant funding. Not since the Great Depression has the government taken ownership stakes in private corporations at such scale and speed, and in this case without explicit congressional authorization. The political reception has been mixed. Stalwart allies have criticized President Trump for what they see as unprecedented intervention in markets, while progressives have cheered the taxpayer benefits of government. How many progressives have cheered of this or whatever, bro? Okay, Sanders. I guess that makes sense. We get it. Trump is corrupt. Real. What's your opinion on Iran war starting soon? Is that confirmed? Has that update dropped yet? Have the devs announced that? I don't know. My understanding, are we talking Trump corruption by selling chips indirectly to UAE? No, we were talking about the equity stakes. Equity investments are now a visible tool in the government's industrial policy toolkit. This is a positive development. Used judiciously, equity instruments can support industrial policy goals and protect taxpayers from asymmetric investment risk. Kill me. Without clear purpose, appropriate structure, and defined exit strategies, equity stakes risk becoming rule by deal, one-off transactions that benefit particular political interest rather than a public. This piece proposes a 4-part test for evaluating government equity investments. 1, whether there is defensible legal authority. 2, whether there's clear purpose for intervening. 3, whether another tool could be better support that purpose. And 4, whether there is a predetermined exit strategy to avoid bad incentives. Oh, nice. MAGA socialism, my favorite. Yeah. Lindsey Graham basically confirmed. I am sure. Iran war. Lindsey Graham. There's literally nothing in the news about it, which makes me think you're gonna cite one of your Telegram chat things that you like to cite. And those aren't always particularly accurate. Okay, Trump administration has deployed a variety of means to acquire stakes in companies. Direct equity capital, which gives government ownership stake in the company. Equity option, which grants warrants options to purchase equity stakes in the future at a fixed price. Veto power, which grants the federal government a say over certain business decisions, even without an economic ownership stake. Federal government's use of equity isn't inherently good or bad, but must be evaluated on its ability to minimize the downsides and maximize the benefits. Why direct equity can make sense. Lending is often the prototypical tool when government is filling a private sector financing gap. For example, the Office of Energy Dominance Financing, previously known as the Loan Programs Office, lends or guarantees lending for companies that have demonstrated technological viability but lack existing revenue streams or established credit profiles to access traditional project financing. Since these companies are closer to the steady revenue generation needed to service interest payments within a reasonable timeframe, the government can step in to provide a loan or loan guarantee. In this case, government lending can serve as a bridge from innovation to commercialization. Inherently no, practically always bad. I mean, I don't think always bad is defensible. I think there was above one case where the government holding equity in an enterprise has had positive outcomes. I mean, obviously, I'm struggling to think of state-owned enterprises that are like not wholly state-owned. That I think are good, because a lot of the like state-run shit that I do think is good is typically wholly state-owned and not just an equity stake. I mean, I think obviously Norway's sovereign wealth fund has had benefits for its citizens, and that's kind of like, you know, you might make a distinction with sovereign wealth funds because they're not like doing equity purchases or financing for the purpose of any type of industrial policy or direct management. They are simply kind of saving with money from other state-owned enterprises like their oil one. Go to his ex. He alluded to it by saying President Trump is a man of his word, as text for a photo earlier today with Trump during the Super Bowl. Okay, I really would not take that particularly seriously. Okay, there was a situation where companies need a more patient form of capital, as Haldeep Singh recently noted. There's a class of investments in projects or companies that require a lot of upfront capital investment, a very long time to generate commercially attractive return, let's say 10 years plus, and that have a lot of risk that investors feel uncomfortable modeling. It could be geopolitical or regulatory, or some type of risk that the government knows more about than they do. A lot of these are deep tech or physical investments. The venture capital community tends not to fund these projects at pace and scale, but these companies require equity because they don't yet have cash flows to service debt. That is the sweet spot where equity stakes make sense. The X post is in relation to that. He keeps saying Trump must keep his word on promise to act on. I know. I'm just saying I would not take that tweet as a particularly strong indication that war with Iran is confirmed. That seems a little hyperbolic because Trump says a lot of shit. Lindsey Graham says less shit than Trump, to be fair, but quite a bit of shit. And this is a tweet that is not even especially specific, so I wouldn't worry about it that much. Adding debt burden could worsen a firm's balance sheet precisely when it might need flexibility to continue making upfront capital investment. Innovative companies at the technological frontier often have uncertain timelines to profitability. Learning by doing in hard tech manufacturing requires time that debt financing often doesn't allow. Patient capital can make the government a strategic partner for firms whose success strengthens national economic security. In the context of targeted industrial policy, equity investments can offer support without creating additional fixed obligations. Grants and refundable tax credits can also serve as patient capital, but they are expensive. They defray costs for recipient companies, but offer no prospect of compensation. Okay, maybe I don't care about this right now. I can read it on my own time. Because in nuclear energy, China and Russia compete via build, own, and operate models, providing 100% of the equity and debt to construct nuclear power plants. With lending as its only offering, the U.S. can't present a favorable option to already debt-saddled companies looking to expand access to reliable energy. When a deal requires patient capital or greater risk sharing, the absence of statutory authority for equity investments impedes its competitiveness in strategic sectors. Alright, what the fuck? I've had a majority of my chat censored today. I don't know why, yeah. Okay, hold on. Do we wanna talk about fucking this shit, Chipringo?
Have a set of price ceiling.
She realized that Iran has no intention of submitting to U.S.-Israeli demands, so you should expect war soon. Only your chat, not blaming you. YouTube is messed up. Dude, I have no clue. I know you're not blaming me, but it's frustrating because I literally just don't know like what it is. Okay, hold on. What was 1401? Just for context, Springo got mad at me for accepting bad arguments from Keynesians. Been through this many times. I think you should don't want me influencing sweet and young and nice gents like yourself. Apparently not.
Policy, you will agree that you'll also have those different effects. Well, this is a place, Marina, where we really do read the evidence differently, and I think our audience should be very much aware of it. What has happened in these 3 years, actually, from 75 to 78, was that we still had a policy with a great deal of slack in it, a lot of unemployment, a lot of unused capacity.
You mean an economy with a lot of slack?
Yeah, that's right. And inflation got stuck. Inflation got stuck right around the 5 to 6% level.
Inflation
dropped. Milton, now just a darn minute, as the expression goes. In 1974, 75, we had ferocious double-digit inflation. We touched off by a 400% jump in the oil price and a 40% jump in food prices in 2.5 years. And,
you can't explain inflation by a rise in prices. Inflation is a rise in prices.
With non-food and non-fuel.
Like, so I don't know if it's transitive. To some extent, it feels like Friedman is just kind of playing word games here. I think LDR real. I think it kind of does the same thing later, where it seems like he just kind of wants to define inflation as only like the long run stuff. And I think it's relevant for the COVID stuff. By the way, Japringa was getting mad at me about for saying some of the COVID inflation was supply side or whatever. You know, it's just like what people are talking about in the COVID context, and to a lesser extent in this conversation too, is like of the rise in inflation that we observe in like the inflation indexes, right? PCE, CPI, how much of that rise is explained by supply side factors, which there obviously was during the 70s inflation, right? Like the oil embargo obviously had an effect on prices that showed up in the inflation indexes we have. That's obvious. I don't think you get around that by just saying, "Oh, you can't explain inflation by," or seems to be missing the point when Friedman says that. I don't know. I don't get it.
Is up 100%. We took off wage and price controls, so we had a pop-up effect after the controls came off, and we had a devaluation of the dollar of about 20%, which raised import prices. Now,
that part is a little silly to me, but
almost all of those forces that led to the double-digit inflation of that period are outside the essential control or realm or influence of fiscal policy and monetary policy. You can say, well, if you didn't have the quantity of money to validate those price increases, you wouldn't have had the price increases. No, but you would have had a depression.
I really think this discussion so far has established a couple of things. And one is that two leading economists really do interpret the evidence differently. And second is that there is no general and commonly agreed theory of what causes inflation.
Oh, I don't believe that's right. Go slowly. We do interpret.
So I think, hold on, well, let me play this for a second here.
But there is an accepted agreement about what ultimately causes inflation. There's no agreement.
Notice the word ultimately.
Right.
Now, we really ought to look at that a little more closely, because that is
like I think you should be more specific about whatever claim you think I'm wrong about, or you think I'm making, because essentially all economists do agree that long-run average inflation is largely determined by the growth in the money supply. Now, I think to some extent you can actually, some people might dispute the causality there, because like if money is, and I do think money is endogenous, then a lot of the growth in broad money is determined by not the central bank, but by the business investment, essentially, business expectations, the fluctuation in the marginal efficiency of capital, right? I just found the parallels astounding listening to this. Close your eyes, and to a layman like me, it's indistinguishable. Call me ignorant. I'll accept that. Help me fix it.
rather fundamental.
I mean, I do think you should, like, you should match your confidence to your knowledge or whatever. And, like, I'm not even comfortable making strong claims about what caused the 70s inflation, because I've never, I don't know, I haven't looked into it a ton or anything. Thoughts on private-public partnerships. I mean, that's pretty broad, but they can be good in certain contexts. In other contexts, I think they're likely to be bad. Did you choose? Did you watch Free to Choose? I have not. I've seen clips from it, but I've never watched a full documentary or anything. Wait, hold on. I should just. The story's always been the same. It wasn't Fed balance sheets. It was COVID, dollar valuation, other countries. So and I think I mentioned this as well. The Fed, first of all, the Fed did not have much of a balance sheet during the 70s. That's number one. Thoughts on Johan Norberg? Is he the Swedish dude who wrote the Capitalist Manifesto? I think that's where I know him from. Yeah. I don't know. I've read some of the Capitalist Manifesto. I've seen him talk before. I mean, I think he does some libertarian memes with regards to the Swedish stuff, but overall, I mean, I think he's kind of decent. He debunks Swedish socialism. So I think there's, oh wait, hold on, there's
lots of people just,
obviously there's some things in this that I'm gonna agree with him on, but he said he would vote for Kamala Harris. Okay, well, based, I like him now. When people say Sweden's more socialist, they're not. Their understanding of that does not align with the index, some of the business freedom indexes that a lot of libertarian type people use to say, actually, Sweden is more capitalist than us because they don't have minimum wage and they don't have blah, 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 blah. I'm mixed on Stossel. Can you watch this, please? This entire 40-minute thing? I guess some of it, at least. Hold on, just this. Stop giving credence to bad arguments from Keynesians. Trump and Biden have shot us in the foot. Not the Federal Reserve is the one printing the money. Now, maybe you can argue the deficit spending contributed to how much the Fed needed to print money to sort of finance the deficit spending. But I don't know how strong that is in the U.S.
The whole question of what you use by way of instruments to try to cure inflation.
But go to that question. There is no disagreement among economists about this proposition, and I think Walter will agree, that you cannot get a long continued inflation without a rapid growth in the quantity of money. Without a, let me not say rapid, without a correspondingly, roughly correspondingly, not precise, but a roughly correspondingly rapid growth in the quantity of money.
Also, just because, like, Keynes himself supported inflation targeting. Don't watch this. I'm only watching part of this to yell about some of the stuff. Don't worry about hamsters. Like Keynes would not have argued for inflation targeting if Freeman won, true. If he didn't think like printing money could cause inflation, right? Freeman destroyed him. I have watched a little bit of this one part, and that's what I'm going to watch right now, at least.
Yeah, and then you have to move to the question of, but you would agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the doctrine of original sin. I don't think we can go back to the Garden of Eden.
This is not the doctrine of original sin, because the fact is that a very large fraction of non-economists do not believe in it, do not understand it, and that while economists always express agreement with it, when it comes to actual policy conclusions, they often act as if they didn't.
But Milton, the reason that the layman does not accept it and does not agree with it is a perfectly good one, because in the real world, that's not the way things work. What happens is you have certain institutional changes, things get into the warp. And
so I don't think this part matters, but I also should say, like, in the context of paying interest on reserves, which we started doing in 2008, where banks can hold excess reserves in a bank account with the Fed and earn interest on them. Some like QE or any type of like injection of reserves into banks is not necessarily going to be particularly expansionary, because all you're doing is swapping assets banks have that the Fed is buying, like treasury bills that earn interest, for another asset, bank reserves, that also earn interest. So you're not really going to have a expansionary effect there. That's part of the reason why some of the QE, like we had in 2008, for example, did not we didn't really have inflation from it. Can you watch more Stossel and Unlearning Economics videos? Maybe, man. I think most Unlearning Economics videos are pretty decent. I obviously disagree with some of his stuff, but like I don't think he's bad as some of Stossel's stuff. I don't think he, lies or sells out in any way. I don't think his stuff is nearly as bad as More Perfect Union videos. Also, it's cool. I can't believe we are watching a salsa video. Easy Money wants me to talk about Swedish,
Lots of people just
stupid
hate
socialism stuff.
capitalism. They want socialism.
Socialism is having a moment in American politics right now.
Socialism is totally on trend, especially among young people. The kids love socialism.
I think socialism is great.
Why? Because they're told capitalism hurts the poor.
The rich getting richer.
The crowd demands
But that's just
something
not true.
different.
Yo, thanks for the $5.
Ty for bringing up the clip toe.
The crowd demands something different. Thanks for bringing it up. I appreciate it, Chipringo.
True. The poor get richer too.
Norway! It's as socialist as they come.
And here's another myth. People
I also think I'm trying to. Why is the alerts playing twice again? Why are you doing this to me? Why? I'm trying. I gotta jog my memory. Hold on. Let me try to fix these alerts. But are you familiar? Do you know if I say like endogenous money? Do you know what I mean at all, Chipringo?
say Scandinavia is socialist.
Instead of Cuba or China, think Sweden. Look to countries like Denmark, like Sweden.
I get ads for Twitch. They're able to stop ads. Fuck Twitch. Real. When YouTube has ads for YouTube Premium, I get. I guess. By the way, just for anyone watching Twitch, there are no ads on YouTube or Kick. I have monetization disabled on my live streams on YouTube now. I've had it disabled for a while now because it's just not worth it.
But Sweden isn't socialist. Some time ago.
Time to debate Stossel. I don't think that would be very likely.
Beard, I made this video about that with Swedish author Johan Norberg. But there was more to that interview in our more recent one on his new book.
Just explain what makes Nordic social democracies different from Iberian social democracies. I don't know. My understanding is the sort of Nordic social democracies have less kind of labor protections, sort of less regulation, and it's more of a like flex security model or whatever, where they rely a lot more on transfer payments and that type of stuff. My understanding. Yeah, PPP guy's Discord. I'm banned from his chat and need to call him a fat retard. Somewhere, if he still has one, I assume I'm in it. Oh, yep, there it is.
The Capitalist Manifesto. So here's our full discussion about capitalism, the left's push for degrowth, and Scandinavian socialism.
All I hear is that Sweden is this socialist paradise.
Well, we tried with something that was similar to socialism for a brief interlude in Swedish history in the 1970s and the 1980s. And that's the period that even socialists in Sweden now say, we overreached.
What happened?
Well, in the 1970s and 80s, that's...
I'm not familiar enough with Sweden's history to know the accuracy of this, by the way.
But the Swedish government started to expand dramatically. Taxes rose, regulation was
what's up to
all over the place. And that's the moment in time when Sweden began to lag behind the other countries dramatically. There were no new net jobs created in the private sector, no new international companies. Sweden lagged behind to the extent that we went from being the third richest country on the planet to the 13th richest country on the planet.
13th isn't bad. It doesn't sound like a crisis.
But it makes it difficult to fund all these policies that Sweden had. So they started to print money. So we had a debt and inflation-fueled boom that ended in a terrible crisis. And to defend the Swedish currency,
you may call me Panda.
The central bank even had interest rates at 500% for a while.
What made it a crisis?
Well, suddenly all those systems that people depended on, the pension system, healthcare, and so on, didn't get the funding they needed. So there were waiting lines to...
Oh, wait, I think you can just look up, I bet if you just look up endo money. Nope. Endogenous, as in the opposite of exogenous. I can explain some of it, but basically that's gonna shift how much you think the Federal Reserve, like how much influence they actually have over the money supply, whatever. How is it possible that Sweden, when 50 plus years are getting a single net job in the private sector? Whoa. Have you considered you should look at Sweden's GDP per hour work, and actually Sweden's GDP per hour work is higher? I asked them questions related to economics and philosophy of economics. I mean, sure.
To get health care, people couldn't get the pension that they thought that they depended on for the future. So everybody suddenly realized that something else has to be done.
And even the socialist-leaning politicians agreed?
The socialist minister of finance in Sweden said that our policies have been unsustainable, sometimes absurd, and the tax system is perverse. So even they wanted to dismantle the big government that they had built.
So what happened?
Well, early 90s...
I don't know the history of Sweden. So I don't know if accuracy of some of the stuff. I'm assuming most of it's accurate. But I do think, obviously, you know, there are different types of socialism, just as there are different types of capitalism. And now I wouldn't consider Sweden socialist. But I don't think there'd be anything wrong with a socialist saying Sweden, like, you know, had non-ideal types of socialist policies, just as a capitalist can say someone like a country has non-ideal types of capitalist policies, right? So like if you're, you know, a convoy and you think that sovereign wealth funds are preferable to sort of direct like government command economy ownership, right? Like I don't think there's anything hypocritical or whatever of you saying like, oh, I don't like that Sweden's old socialist model, but you know the new socialist type model is better. The right-wing coalition saved Sweden's social democracy by liberalization. Okay. How does this differ from fractional reserve banking, source of money I was taught about back in the day? Window for endo money even has a ceiling for fractional reserve banking. So basically, hold on, sorry first. What's your perspective on Hayek's concept of the knowledge problem? So I'd have to look into it more to have like I'd have to look into the competing stuff a little bit more to have super strong opinions, because I know Charsky hates some of my positions there. I mean, I think he like, I'm not gonna fully agree with him, but I think that is a conceptual problem, and I think there is empirical evidence that demonstrates like markets do sort of aggregate knowledge and better than the public sector could a lot of times. Further, would be interested in studying the contributions of Karl Popper to economic methodology. I mean, not particularly. I'll fully give you an answer, and I would correct him. So, like the money multiplier fractional reserve banking model, that's assuming that, or that's stating banks essentially, they lend out, well, a fraction of their reserves. They are reserve constrained in the sense that there is a reserve ratio that limits how much they can lend out. And when they, give out a loan, only, whatever the inverse of the reserve ratio is, reciprocal is, like only that amount is, new money or whatever. So maybe, 90% of the loan is like new net money, because they are reserve constrained. They have to keep a fraction of the money in reserve. Whereas the endogenous money would state that, one, banks aren't reserve constrained in the same way. They can make loans that are 100% new money. They can create deposits that are 100% new money, without having reserves. Now, in some sense, they are still reserve constrained because they have to have reserves to settle other payments with banks at the end, with other banks at the end of the day. And that will be affected by the public's willingness to save. It will also be affected by central bank policy. Central bank will ultimately kind of supply the reserves if they really need them. But that's kind of the difference there. So, I mean, that would affect sort of how you view the causation there. I believe we should have decentralized a banking system, and a fractional reserve banking, in my view, should be legal because, to my understanding, it would most effectively satisfy intertemporal preferences for loans. Well, I haven't looked a ton into the banking stuff, but I mean, it's just my understanding that some banking regulation is probably justified on the basis of constraining, spillover bank failures, and certainly there's some information asymmetries in banking that might be justified for regulation. So if you'll one way of sort of viewing the correlation between the money supply and inflation, which obviously that correlation is not perfect and differs quite a bit across countries. It's not particularly high in countries with low and stable inflation, but you could say, oh, the central bank is supplying reserves, and eventually that money will work its way through the whole economy, and people will adjust, and prices will go up, inflation will go up to offset it. Another way of viewing that causation, especially if do you disagree with the MMT theory of how money arises in our system? What do you mean by how money arises in our system? I agree with endogenous money, which many MMTers do. Sorry for the redundancy, no worries. Now, are you talking about how money is created, or how money is created from a government? Hold on. So the origin of money stuff, essentially. MMTers will also say oh, the reason we use money or whatever is because taxes drive the demand for money, and that's why people have to hold money and stuff. I don't fully agree with that stuff. I do agree that money is endogenous, and most MMTers do believe that, but most a lot of I don't know if most economists do. I believe most economists do, but what the term endogenous money means different people have different kind of interpretations of that. Many non-MMTers agree with endogenous money. But so you could view the correlation there as the causal story being the central bank prints money that's reserve money, and eventually that money is kind of lent out and works their way through the whole economy, and people will eventually have to, if they want to keep the same real cash balance, right? Eventually people will have to raise prices until the real cash balance balances out. There's got to be a simpler way to explain that. But in the sort of endogenous money case, you'd view it as sort of businesses and people demand loans. They have a demand for loans. They want bank loans. the banks will do the lending, and then later the central bank will supply more reserves if needed for the banks to continue making loans and to settle interbank payments. Way here from MTers, FRB no longer exists since all balance sheets are settled every night between banks. First of all, FRB hasn't really existed since 2008. And what's up, Crash says on, and definitely has not existed since 2020 when we got rid of reserve ratios. But since 2008, we've been in excess reserves anyway, an excess reserve system anyway, because we pay interest on reserves. But I think you're just talking, it sounds essentially like you're describing Dodge's money. And I agree with that. Not to see your balance sheet, so the new money is not accounted for. I don't know exactly what you mean by the new money is not accounted for, but we are K-Icon in this house. True. We stand our K-Icon.
1990s, we had a wide agreement from the left to the right that we
don't agree because intertemporal time preferences of people who desire to purchase goods and services sooner, in my view, justifies decentralized banking systems so people who desire loans have easier access to interest rates, which are accommodated to. I understand conceptually that argument. I'm saying that's probably not. For one, I think there are information asymmetries that could affect the efficiency of that system. And I think monetary stability, even if it comes at some trade-off of meeting intertemporal time preferences, which I can see the argument for and stuff, obviously, that is almost certainly worth it.
We have to reform the economy, open up new markets, liberalize product markets so businesses could start in new areas, do away with occupational licenses and things like that, lower taxes, reform.
You know who Rob Thorpe is? I don't really know what the fight's going on with him and Grace Thorpe and whatever. I know they get in a lot of drama. I know they've had drama with Minar before. God, Bassett is an underrated DI hire, dude. I didn't even know he was gay until recently.
Pension system, so
until like 2 weeks ago, and I think Easy Money told me he was.
It wasn't unsustainable. Partly privatize the pension system.
Privatize the pension system. That terrifies people.
Yeah, it does.
Means you're not guaranteed money from the government.
Exactly. It's only a defined contribution. You don't know what you will get, and obviously that scares people who wanted a lot. But when they realize that the alternative was that,
I bet it might be individual accounts or whatever. I bet there is still some either public pension or publicly insured pension in Sweden. Certainly I would guess that they mandate that you make those defined contributions.
The whole pension system would collapse. They thought that this is my...
Yeah, I don't think this is an accurate model of how banking really works. I'm familiar.
Better than nothing.
But Sweden is still cited as the socialist paradise.
When you look at our policies, we do have a bigger welfare state than the US, higher taxes than the US, but in other areas, when it comes to free markets, when it comes to competition, when it comes to free trade, Sweden is actually more free market. If you look at the latest statistics from the Heritage Foundation and Wall Street Journal, Sweden is apparently more free market than the United States.
There's no...
there's the meme you see libertarians do a lot, okay? And, most people's conceptions just Dylan, thanks for becoming a member again. Hell fucking yeah. Most people's conceptions of what socialism is just does not align with what these indexes measure. I know the Heritage Foundation has one, and the Fraser Institute has one as well. I don't remember the exact differences between them. I think the Fraser Institute one is worse, and the Heritage Foundation one is okay. But a lot of times these will measure things like the amount of paperwork you have to, oh my God, why is Botrix doing this to me? You have to sign to open a business or whatever. It's we do worse on that front, but it's Sweden has a fuck ton of welfare. Sweden has socialized medicine. All those things fit more with what people understand socialism to be. So an argument that pensions are grown through stock market investments stimulates the economy. Kind of. There's an argument that savings, more generally, is better for the economy in the long run. And insofar as you sort of don't discriminate against savings, oh, good night, y'all. I appreciate it. You stopping by, Dylan Thomas. That would be better. Now, if you're artificially increasing savings. That might not always be great, but in our current system, we, to some extent actively penalize savings with capital gains tax, with even income tax technically has penalizes savings to some degree. So if you make exemptions for that, that could be better for long run growth. What do you think think of a Dem party that frees the market completely and increases the welfare state? I don't know what freeze the market completely really means. I don't particularly like a lot of regulations. I think you know that, easy money, but like I'm okay with climate change policy regulations. I'm okay with some banking regulations, as we were just talking about. We were talking about regulations on like gambling earlier.
No minimum wage. Government doesn't control production.
Yeah, and we've also tried to open up the welfare state to private providers because we've realized that we've got problems with a nationalized healthcare system, so we need to privatize one of the biggest hospitals in...
He hates the market,
and
true.
To other private companies. And in the education system, because it didn't work. It didn't work very well, so we need competition, innovation, new ideas. So we rolled out a national school voucher system, so the private schools got the same funding as the public ones.
On The View.
Name one country that socialism has ever worked.
What was the...
First of all...
What was the... Oh, pension. What's up, Bones? Welcome back. Incredible. Google Gemini. Consists of 3 parts: a national public pension from the state, an occupational pension from your employer, and any savings or assets that you may have. Yeah, I was going to say, I bet maybe the national public pension doesn't cover everyone, but I bet they also mandate that you save. What would our sovereign wealth fund invest in besides the S&P, the Dow Jones? Mandates 18.5% contributions to annual income. Where's Google getting that from?
Socialism means the...
Backing off minimum wages. I like... I don't care that much about minimum wages on a state level. It's fine, whatever. Backing off on unions, that's good. I would like that if Democrats didn't cuck out the unions as much. Backing off aggressive antitrust, I would mostly like that. And focusing on increasing taxes to fund social programs, as long as they're good taxes.
Government owning the means of production. Sweden has never had that. The socialists realized in Sweden that they need big business. They need multinational companies to fund the welfare state. So it was...
Wait, why are we calling these people socialists then if they didn't meet the real definition of socialism?
On The View.
Name one country that socialism has ever worked, and also every...
First of all, socialism means the government owning the means of production. Sweden has never had that. The socialists realized in Sweden that they need big business. They need...
I thought they tried socialism before. I thought even the socialists in Sweden said that the old socialism didn't work.
Multinational companies to fund the welfare state. So it was always a free market to that extent. And the big businesses even got specific benefits and privileges because the economy was so dependent on them.
Jim Carrey.
I grew up in Canada, okay? We have socialized medicine. And I'm here to tell you that this bullshit line that you get on all of the political shows from people is that it's a failure. The system is a failure.
I see all taxation as limiting. Sin taxes are the epitome of this idea. Sorry if I'm being obtuse. Limiting in what sense? In the social welfare sense? Not all taxes are bad. Sin taxes are obviously, if ideally implemented and stuff, social welfare enhancing. They raise revenue for the government, and they also discourage behavior that has negative externalities.
Failure in Canada. It is not a failure in Canada. I never waited for anything in my life. I chose my own doctors. My mother never paid for a prescription. It was fantastic.
He must have been lucky. That's great. But in the recent Swedish election, the top priority for voters in the polls was not crime or immigration or the economy. It was healthcare and the fact that people had to wait in line for treatment for such a long time. Specifically, when it comes to cancer treatment, for certain types of cancer, you have to wait for more than 200 days to get treatment. And that tells you something about the problem of rationing healthcare by just not giving people what they need.
They got a booming economy that is grown,
Thank you,
increased the rate of the American economy. They got surpluses, they got more people working, and they have a society that works.
Well, everybody has to work in Sweden to fund the welfare state because it's so large. So we really have to do hard work to get people into jobs. But the way we do that is by opening up more markets, having fewer license requirements, occupational licenses, the kind of things that...
True. I mean, I like that stuff, but to be fair, I bet annual working hours are lower in Sweden than they are in the US. Maybe I'm wrong in that. Working hours, Sweden versus US.
America has to stop people.
This is just Google Gemini, but it says it's a lot lower. The US, we're at 1700 here. Sweden, they're at 1600. When we're moving to Sweden, I used to want to move to Sweden or Norway. I would still like to. I would want to move to Amsterdam too. I just want somewhere where I don't have to drive my fucking car all the time.
People from entering new jobs, and so in a way, we'll have a successful economy, but that's partly because we're free market to some extent.
From your movie. It is a socialist economy.
Volvos and socialized medicine.
All those stereotypes are quite interesting, and many of them are stuck in the past. Volvo is now a Chinese company.
What does that mean from a classical liberal point of view?
Well, it means that for a while, the Swedish economy was doing so bad and the currency was going south. So everything was quite cheap, so the Chinese and others could buy our big companies. And that was incredibly problematic at that time for the reason that, not that they were bought by someone else, it's in a way a sign of strength that they want to invest in our economy. But it's a problem if we don't grow the new companies like that. Around the turn of the millennium, we didn't have one company.
I want to move somewhere I can use my car more to offset you. It's not even like an environmental thing. I have a well, my family has an electric car. But it's it's a first generation Nissan Leaf. So it's and we bought it, you know, when it first came out. Battery could only do 80 miles when we first got it, and can't exactly even do that anymore. Not very convenient. But that was like the car I learned how to drive on. I like took my driver's test in.
Company among the 50 biggest that had been created over the last 25.
It's a big culture shock. Everything is smaller. People are content with it. Like what? Like the food? I know like the portion sizes are smaller. I know the streets are smaller because their cars are smaller.
5 years. So they were all created during the sort of small government laissez-faire era. But after the reforms, suddenly we...
But it's not an environmental thing. I just don't like driving that much.
We reformed the economy, opened up new markets, and then suddenly we got the new companies in telecoms, in tech, and so on.
And is this just Sweden, or just also true for Denmark, Norway? Well, Norway's got oil money.
Yeah, Norway's also is a strange exception because they have all that oil. So unless American socialists have the plan to strike oil everywhere, that's not a relevant example.
But Denmark shrank its government too?
Yes.
I mean, I like mostly kind of agree, but I still think you can use it as an example of what a semi-socialist model would look like with regards to using some type of government revenue to fund a sovereign wealth fund that has whatever benefits for citizens.
Norway? Well, Norway's got oil money.
Yeah, Norway's also is a strange exception because they have all that oil. So unless American socialists have the plan to strike oil everywhere, that's not a relevant example.
But Denmark shrank its government too?
Yes.
Finland?
Scandinavians.
Iceland?
Yeah.
Astrid Lindgren, 102% in taxes? How is this even possible?
Yeah, 102% taxes, too much even for the socialists.
But how can it be more than 100%?
Yeah, it's quite absurd. She was this famous author of children's books like Pippi Longstocking and so on, and a long-time socialist.
With the vast majority of their sovereign wealth fund investment in our stock market, I don't know if the majority is in the U.S. stock market, but obviously if we had a sovereign wealth fund, we could invest in our own stock market too. Now, I don't particularly hate or like sovereign wealth funds, but
Social Democrat. She found out that when she sold another book,
the apartments are smaller, the houses are smaller portions, you earn less, and the colleges are ways. Yeah, I mean they're like a poorer overall country. I don't mind having a smaller apartment or whatever. Like, it's not like I even if I moved out, like I wouldn't live in a big place anyway or whatever. And I'm fine with smaller portions too. I typically I'm a pretty thin dude. I think you might have heard me say this before. You know, when I went to some summer camp, my nickname there was Squeaks because I ate like a mouse, and everyone got mad at me that when we would go to a restaurant to eat, I would take forever, and they'd want to leave, and I would still eat them.
She ended up with a marginal tax rate. She ended up in a higher threshold that increased the taxes totally, so that she had to pay for selling more books. And she wrote this angry essay about a witch who was quite mean and vicious, but not at all as vicious as the Swedish tax authorities.
How can you...
About you, Fallman, are you good with Palantir knowing every digital dollar we spend? I mean, not Palantir.
would have a more than 100% tax bill.
Yeah, well, no one got that math. And actually, the Swedish socialist finance minister at that time said, she's wrong. She's bad at math. But actually, he was the one who was wrong. The Swedish tax system at that time was so perverse and strange that the Swedish population just said, enough, we can't do this. And even the socialists said, this is perverse, we can't do this.
So for every extra dollar she earned, she'd owe $1.02?
That was too much, even for the socialists.
We have some very interesting reforms on...
I don't know if any socialists, at least nowadays, actually argue for that type of tax structure. There might be some cases where they argue for some type of over 100% tax. But I can't even off the top of my head name anyone that like socialists would support that on.
Letting private enterprises into welfare, schools, hospitals, healthcare, elderly care, that have...
Is it higher prices when given the currency adjustments and given the I mean, I bet they do spend a higher percentage of their income on food, and I guess they have more taxes on a lot of shit.
Worked out quite well.
Private enterprise runs schools, hospitals?
Yeah. Because we realized in Sweden that with these government monopolies, nothing happens. We don't get the innovation that we get when we have competition in other areas. So the way to...
It's all gonna be the same thing with like the pension shit, where it's gonna be like, yeah, there's like public-private partnerships, but all of it is still gonna be like more socialist than much of what the U.S. has in similar industries, right? Like if I just look at like private hospitals, Sweden, I bet there's percent of private hospital Sweden, 10 to 15%, according to Wikipedia. Private healthcare is a rarity in Sweden, even those private institutions work under mandated city councils. Oh, wait, we got the, with roughly 40 to 46% of primary care centers privately run. They got that. Private healthcare accounting for 12% of total healthcare costs, according to international trade, whatever. You think the dollar is going to make a comeback and crush commodity prices? Probably not. Like, I don't think this dude would ever, if someone proposed some type of private-public partnership of almost any sort in the U.S., be like, oh yeah, this is not, that bad. This is pretty free market, actually.
Create competition was to allow private businesses to start new schools with new ideas, with new teaching models, and then allow families to pick a school themselves, which forces...
They might have, I don't know, the private school stuff. They might have more like private schooling stuff than us.
Schools to become better. And one of the results that we've seen is not just that the private schools are better than the public ones, but even the public schools in the vicinity of private schools, they often improve because they have to get then pupils and the funding that comes with them.
To compete.
You see that everywhere else.
Says 18% of Swedish compulsory schools were grant aided. I don't know. I mean, this is just fucking Wikipedia. The majority of schools are run municipally, but there are also privately owned schools. don't have data on Sweden.
In the economy, if you're forced to compete, you have to step up, you have to be better. Why not in the welfare services?
Today, the healthcare system is not primarily run by the national government?
No, we don't have a sort of single payer system and the kind of thing that American socialists think we do in Sweden. This is based on the regional level in Sweden, and therefore also funded by local taxes primarily, which is
like, if someone proposed some type of regional healthcare system similar to the type that like Sweden has, this guy would totally call it socialized medicine. Like, what do we like? And so would almost every libertarian. Now, I think it's like, it's fair to say they don't have a single payer system, and like when Democrats like, you know, I don't like this either. But like when people like Bernie Sanders say like, oh, I just want what Europe has or whatever, it's like they're not really telling the truth, because like Bernie's plan would be a single payer system, which many European countries don't have, and would cover, you know, like dental and eye care and stuff that even single payer countries in Europe often don't have. But bro,
it's a flat tax, and then the national government steps in and has some extra funding for specific things that they want to do. But this is primarily a regional issue.
But government run?
Yes. Government run, but quite often private businesses in this sector, funded by government money.
What can America learn from Sweden?
Well, you can learn both from the good and from the bad. The bad experiences we've had and others should learn from is, don't get cocky. I mean, even though the economy might work very well, you have all this money, you're on top of the world, you can't turn your backs to the to the creation of wealth. That's what we did in the 1970s and 1980s, and just started to redistribute and make strange policy decisions that ran counter to any kind of economic orthodoxy. And that almost killed the Swedish economy. It almost ruined us completely. So you have to continue to create wealth in order to use it. The good thing to be learned from Sweden is how you reform the economy. I think it's important for the US and to how you can introduce competition and choice.
Do we I can't. Do we need to watch this, bro? Like, this is not like serious analysis of anything.
Don't get cocky. I mean, even though the economy might work very well, you have all this money, you're on top of the world, you can't turn your backs to the creation of wealth. That's what we did in the 1970s and 1980s, and just started to redistribute and make strange policy decisions that ran counter to any kind of economic orthodoxy.
Even as you know, the history of Sweden that he provided it did not sound like much of the problem was simply the redistribution of wealth. I bet like many of the things that they did with regards to like government ownership and everything obviously was probably with the goal of equitable access to certain things, of paste link please to what, this video, or of some type of redistribution. But like, we redistribute a fair amount of wealth in the US, and we still grow, you know, pretty quickly. I do think, generally speaking, there is some trade-off between efficiency and equity, but I don't think this is a serious analysis of the trade-off between efficiency and equity, and I don't think this is a serious analysis of what system, you know, what types of taxes or what types of government ownership or what types of whatever are the best ways to redistribute wealth, and what is the optimal amount of wealth to redistribute, right? It's just libertarian like meme slop. Sweden isn't socialist. I don't know when you think I ever thought it was easy money. I said, I'm pretty sure at the outset that I don't think Sweden is socialist.
And that almost killed the Swedish economy. It almost ruined us completely. So you have to continue to create wealth in order to, we all rely on the pension system, social security, things that are unsustainable with the kind of demographic future we have, unless we change this into more of defined contribution rather than defined benefits.
Low-income earners in Sweden pay a lot.
Over the past 20 years, more than 130,000 people were lifted out of extreme poverty every day for 20 years. And it happened in societies that began to open up their economies and integrate into trade and global investments. And that's what capitalism does. That's not just a...
I don't entirely, obviously, I think capitalism, you know, does shift overall incomes to the right. It does lift people out of poverty. But I also think it's quite clear that it's not sufficient to lift everyone out of poverty. And the welfare state has been pretty successful in the US, and to my knowledge, other countries as well, of lifting people out of poverty. And you can debate the sort of merits of, or you can debate the optimal way to do that, and you can debate how far is too far? What's the optimal number of people in poverty? But like, Well, no, it seems like we have decent evidence that if you just look at poverty after the war on poverty and the Great Society, those programs did reduce poverty, especially consumption poverty. If you just hold, if you create some absolute measure of poverty based on consumption, that's like way down. And there's decent reason to believe that it's causal, considering we have studies, much more narrow studies, about the effects of welfare on people. And it seems like it generally does do a pretty good job at stabilizing their income through, you know, for example, whatever life, being fired, for example, seems to, in some cases, we do have like UBI pilot programs that will say like, oh, self-reported stress levels or whatever went down. That's obviously plausible. So the optimal amount of poverty is when everyone has slightly less money than me. This is true.
Fancy theory. It's something real that is happening. And it's also something that we should keep in mind every time somebody talks about how we should have more tariffs and protectionism and regulations, that every kind of intervention like that limits what human beings can do with their lives. And that hurts opportunity and it increases poverty. And we have to save the world from such interventions.
Elon Musk recommended your book on...
I mean, I can feel the libertarian NAP like wanting to come out of him.
It increases poverty and we have to save the world from such interventions.
Elon Musk recommended your book on Twitter, and that's gotten millions of views. Congratulations. But he says, especially chapter 4. So I look at chapter 4. It's titled In Defense of the 1%. So he only likes it because you're defending rich people like him.
The question is, how did he get rich? How does someone get rich? That's more interesting than how much money they've got. In every society, we have people who control resources. Did they take them from somebody else? That's bad. We should stop that. But
no, why are we doing this? No.
In a capitalist society,
Saving the world violates the NAP. This is real.
You get rich by enriching others, by producing electric cars, for example, or new technological capabilities and making them come down in price and making sure that more people have access to them. In that case, if they get rich because we hand over our money because we think those goods and services are more valuable to us, then it's a great thing that they are rich because they...
Okay, it's not as bad as I thought. Okay, not as bad as I thought. All right. I thought I was gonna do just the. I think the incentives is the thing that matters, right? Like I think the analysis you should be doing, which again I'll note. I understand this is a John Stossel interview, okay, and it's made for general audiences or whatever, but the analysis should be, what are the instrumental benefits from redistributing wealth in X way, and what is the cost of, in terms of changing the incentives that people have to create wealth by doing productive things.
Rich by helping.
And I don't think that evidence suggests that, you know, there aren't ways of taxing 25% of GDP without, and redistributing much of that as welfare payments, you know, without compromising, and also, and that, hold on, I gotta phrase this better. I don't think the evidence suggests that you can't tax 25% of GDP in a relatively efficient way and redistribute much of that, progressive and efficient, I should say, and redistribute much of that into transfer payments that prevent poverty. I don't think the evidence suggests that would compromise growth to any extreme degree.
Helping us. The Nobel laureate William Nordhaus, he made a back-of-the-envelope calculation of how much does rich entrepreneurs who introduce new technologies and goods and services in the economy capture of the value.
I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with this study.
That they create. And
how much do we tax currently? At what level? If you look at just the federal level in the U.S., we tax like roughly 18%, or I think 16% of GDP. If you include the state spending as well, you know, it's, I think, 33% roughly.
He came up with the conclusion that they get to keep some 2% of the value that they create, which means that the rest of us who just laid on the couch and watched Netflix, we got 98% because we got increased purchasing power.
Musk's got billions of dollars. He only kept 2% of each transaction.
The greatest value of new goods and services and technologies does not come in the dollars and cents that we hand over to the producer. It comes in how they...
Jesus, that's way too high? I don't think... I mean, I want to say that's way too high, considering our deficit too.
Enrich our life.
I don't know if that's an optimal amount or anything, but like I don't, that's lower than most OECD countries. I think if we did it in a more efficient way, it really would not be that catastrophic. 22 is too high. In terms of taxes percentage GDP, no. Also, this is, no offense, Supremo, you're triggering me. That's marginal tax rates, right? Like, you're not taxed at an effective rate of 22%. That's only the 50,000 to 105,000. But I don't think income tax is optimal. So
we use these goods and how they keep coming down in price and become much more.
We should, but easy money. We're gonna, even if we cut spending, there is outstanding debt, obviously, that we have to still service. So I don't think we could achieve, even if you think our spending should be lower, the optimal low tax rate, because we still have to service the existing outstanding debt.
More accessible to.
In fairness, the interest on a debt would not be as much if we taxed more and didn't spend as much. So
more people, constantly making sure that what was luxury goods a couple of decades ago are suddenly something that most of us can afford. One of the most astonishing statistics about the US is that people who fall below.
Can you survive in Switzerland? Everyone says Switzerland is too expensive. But what if I told you
what is this?
Works? A one-room apartment, $1,600 a month. A Big Mac, $18. Lunch out, $35. Cook at home and live on $700 a month. Bus pass, $100. Utilities, $200. Health insurance, $330. Haircut, $40 to $100. You'll need about
Okay. Has anyone tried telling the debt to service itself? Real. Anyone making 100K is getting hit 22%, half their income though? Well, kind of. Obviously, past a certain margin, you start not taking all your money as income. And you can obviously, there's tax advantage accounts like Roth IRAs, for example, available to ordinary people as well. So
in the US now,
and you get transfer payments too. It's like even you get payments from the government. People making 100K are not going to be getting like Medicaid and food stamps, and I believe they are still net taxpayers, but they also get some types of welfares and deductions and yada 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 that reduce their effective tax rate or their net tax burden, you know, considering the support they get from the government.
Has a greater chance of owning amenities like refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, dishwashers, dryers, and of course cell phones and computers than the average American did in 1970. That's the greatest voluntary, spontaneous redistribution of resources that exists. The fact that all those luxury goods come down in price and are suddenly accessible to most people.
The headlines: a mass loneliness.
I agree.
Loneliness is an epidemic. We are absolutely in a loneliness crisis.
Okay, I don't give a fuck. Been more interesting. CA median income is 100K. No, maybe I don't know. There's no way that it's not for the entire state. No way. Maybe in LA or something. Google Gemini does say 99,000 to 100,000. Census.gov. I don't think, wait, Census.gov is lying to me. Yeah, that's household income. Median household income in 2024 dollars is 99,000. Is that real household income? I think it's I don't think it's real. I think it's nominal. Oh no, it's $124. Okay, so that is real. Real household income, median. Household isn't as bad as they're married. Well, I would assume, you know, it's the married people. I say pushing the median up. I understand medians are not like susceptible to outliers, but married people are a big reason why the median would be high. but I compromise my household income. I'm a sad single love based.
It's kind of unbelievable to me that there are people who will be watching this video who haven't subscribed to the channel, because I was thinking about that, not just for channels generally.
Anybody who's not watching, you know,
what is the right theory of property right? So, but we have two different philosophers with two different answers to this question. So, I mean, everybody knows Michael Huemer, but we're also joined by Dr. Jesse Spafford, who's a philosophy lecturer at Victoria University of Wellington. So, I guess Dr. Spafford, you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to Michael Huemer.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jesse Spafford. Like you said, I'm based at the Victoria University of Wellington down in New Zealand. Yeah, and I'm a political philosopher doing work on a variety of questions, but primarily interested in anarchism and particularly interested in left-wing anarchism, arguing for an egalitarian anarchism as a moral view is my angle. But I have some other interests. I'm interested in rights. I'm interested in sort of theories of rights forfeiture, questions like that, self-defense, those sorts of questions.
Okay, and then we had Huemer in the first episode, and he's back now. Michael Huemer.
Yeah, so I'm a professor of philosophy at the University of Colorado at Boulder. I've written about epistemology, ethics, political philosophy. I have a book called The Problem of Political Authority that everybody should immediately buy and read. My most popular political philosophy work. And yeah, I've written about 12 books that you should also buy, all of them.
Yeah, a lot of people were losing sleep over whether they were brains and vats. So if you're struggling with that question, you have to watch the first video. But even more, considerably more people are losing sleep over whether they have a right to their own property. So, okay, so yeah, we're just gonna do it like this. We're gonna have Michael Huemer is going to start off his opening. Jesse's going to start off his opening. Then they're going to have a bit of a rebuttal, and then we're just going to go into open discussion. So I guess we can get started now.
Okay, good. So I guess I'll just say some things about what property rights are, I guess. So there's an institution in our society called property rights. And the core of this is that items of value get assigned to a particular person who has the right to decide which of the otherwise morally acceptable uses of the property, of the resource.
See people, not my enemy. I wish them all happiness and family. So, well, clearly you don't want the poorest Californians to have access to welfare payments, which are financed by the taxes on higher income people.
There's a collection of sort of ancillary rights that you get if you own something, like, oh, you can bequeath it, and you can give people permission or deny people permission to use it, and you can destroy it, if you want, stuff like that. But the core thing is you get to decide which of the acceptable uses is realized. And the reason for this is, well, there are resources, there are valuable things in the world that in order to get value out of them, somebody has to do something with them, but there are different ways that different people would like to use them that are incompatible. And so there has to be a solution to this potential conflict. Okay, and the property rights solution is, for each of these items, there's a particular decision maker, and then what that decision maker decides is what happens. Okay, and now there's potentially a moral problem with this, which is, well, when you own property, then you get to exclude other people from making use of that property, which on the face of it is harmful to the other people. Okay, so you have something of value, and you could decide to not use it in a valuable way, and simultaneously you could decide to exclude other people from getting value out of it, which seems bad. Okay, so you might want to wonder, like, why should we have an institution that lets you do that? You might say, you're usually not allowed to harm other people. It looks on the face of it like it's harmful if I stop somebody from using a valuable resource that they could otherwise use, right? Okay, good. Now, so why should we believe in property rights at all? And so I have a couple of things to say about that. One is an appeal to intuitions. So most people will have a moral intuition that's along the lines of natural property rights. So, like, let's say there's a hermit living in an area that is outside the jurisdiction of any government. Right? Maybe this is on an island that was not discovered for a while, and so there's no government in operation. And the point of this stipulation is to ensure that your intuitions will not be influenced by the law of a particular society. Okay, so there's the hermit, and also it's a hermit because there are no social conventions that he's a part of. All right, but so you go to this area, maybe you go to this this island that is outside the jurisdiction of any government, and you find this hermit there, he's living by himself, and then he has some stuff. There's some stuff that he's making use of, like he built a hut, and he's got a spear that he uses for hunting or whatever. Okay, and now, would it be okay for you to go and just do whatever you want with this stuff? Which I'm inclined to call his stuff, but that might be a tendentious description. Okay, like you have the hut, and you can just like paint it lime green because you feel like it, or there's.
I imagine they're gonna get into this, but I would imagine like most people's intuitions would align with like a Vela. Like a fucking Rawlsian Vela ignorance thing. I would imagine people would have pretty egalitarian intuitions. I think they're gonna, like, their intuitions are gonna align with him in this case. But like, I think that would, for example, I bet they'll get into this too, but like if someone was disabled, or if someone had monopolized, he built huts, he built a fence around all the food in the world, they would say that he would have some obligation to provide food to the other person, or design society in such a way that the lowest person in it as whatever maximum amount of welfare.
The spear that he made, and you could just take it, and then you could just take a bunch of the stuff that he's accumulated with you as you leave the island.
Also, he keeps getting quiet because he keeps going away from his mic.
Okay, would these be okay things to do? And then I think you probably have the intuition that these things are not okay. All right, now, but these things would be okay if you just found these things and it wasn't created by the hermit, or if you'd made the spear, then you could take it with you. That'd be okay. And so it does look like there's something like property rights involved there. All right, and this is natural property rights, meaning not created by conventions or laws. And that was the point of stipulating that it's a hermit who's outside the jurisdiction of the government. So it looks like there are moral constraints that we all.
We're getting close to Coconut Island. I mean, I don't think Coconut Island is. It's not trying to usually improve anything like the existence of any like intrinsic values there. It's just meant to prove a principle that, not all, like, you can coerce people in transactions.
Accept. Now, that's not to say that every aspect of property is natural. So there are aspects of our property institutions that are created by convention and by the law. But I'm just saying there is some core that is not dependent on convention or law. Okay, so like there's an example I got from David Friedman, like can American Airlines fly airplanes over?
Yeah, I was gonna say
over your house. So you own the land, and then you own some amount of the airspace above the land, but how high up? So can they fly an airplane that's like 100 feet above your house? Probably not. Can they fly 20,000 feet above your house? Probably yes. But how high they're allowed to fly?
By the way, part of what that stuff shows is that it might be simply reducible to harm or utility. Because I think the difference there, and the difference between other examples, like, just shining a light at someone's house, they're, putting up a mirror and shining, reflecting photons into someone's property. Some amount is acceptable and some amount isn't. And I think that it's just reducible to how much harm it causes the property owner. Which is kind of evidence that maybe property rights more generally are reducible to considerations over utility.
Is determined by conventions and laws. Okay, so that's not natural property rights. So I think there is a core intuitive kind of natural notion of property rights, and then there are aspects of it that have to be specified by the conventions. Okay, so okay, so you're supposed to think that there's just sort of like an ethical intuition, and then you should just accept what seems intuitive unless you have specific reasons for doubting it. This is the other thing that I want to say about why we have an institution of property. There's sort of a rule utilitarian rationale. So the world contains these resources that can provide a lot of.
What is this? Oh, it's just the airspace limits we have, yeah.
Value, but only if somebody does something with them. Like there's some land.
Which is also, by the way, sorry, I got reminded of this. The people who complain about some of the measurability stuff or whatever, utilitarianism, like they think face, maybe to a lesser degree, but many of them I think also face the same issue in that what determines the right violation in some cases at least is also going to be reducible to how much harm it causes the person. Like the reason it is some violation of your property right or whatever, I think is because, shining crazy, intense, brightest flashlight in the world does cause harm to you, whereas shining a very small light in their general direction does not cause harm to the property owner. And that is, a claim about subjective experience that you're going to have some way to measure.
And somebody could grow food on the land, right? But somebody has to do something to get this value out of the land. Okay, and there's potentially conflict about who gets to do something with the land. Okay, but if
I mean, I don't know. Oh no, that's like crazy loud, isn't it?
Governing who gets to control the resource, then what will in fact happen is, well, maybe people will just fight over it, right? Or suppose that there's a convention that you're not allowed to fight with people. Then what will happen is that the first person who finds it will probably try to use it up. Okay, but there's a lot of stuff that would create value that will not happen if there aren't conventions or laws that protect property rights. So like, I'm not going to create a farm on some land if I'm not secure that I will get the benefit. So if there are no property rights institutions, then what will happen is I plant the crops, and then as soon as
I would buy his potions. For real. What's up, Borzy?
Already, some 50 other people will come and take.
Does kind of give off that vibe.
Right, because there's no rule to stop them from doing that. And if I know that that's going to happen, then I'm just not going to.
Can't fire people non-aggression pat. Well, he's making a And when he said rural utilitarian case here.
Crops. And then I'm just going to go and, maybe I would just have to be a hunter-gatherer. Everyone would have to be a hunter.
But also, I think maybe I'm missing something. The people who want redistribution, right? Many of them are not saying, people who want some amount of redistribution, right? Maybe Econ Boy might have a slightly different opinion, but I would just obviously I recognize there are a lot of instrumental benefits from having property rights. And I'm a capitalist and I like private property. I don't think you don't have some intrinsic claim on it that means that we can't do any type of redistribution. And I think it's equally justifiable under rural utilitarian grounds, especially under ACT utilitarian grounds, to do redistribution.
Gatherer, right? Okay, and then that's just one example, and there are lots of things that are like that.
Also, economists agree until it comes to legislate. I don't know what you mean by that.
I'm not going to build an apartment.
Economists usually aren't the ones writing the legislation, unfortunately.
Apartment building if I can't control who lives in it. So if there's no property institutions, then I guess anybody can just come and start living in it, and I can't exclude them. And if I can't exclude them, that means I can't charge people money, because the way that I charge people money is that I threaten to exclude them unless they pay me rent. Okay, so then if I can't charge people money, then I'm not going to make an apartment building. And that's just true about lots of things. Like this computer that I'm using wouldn't exist. If the people who made it couldn't count on getting most of the benefit from making it, right? Okay, so and then you think, okay, yeah,
I wonder if he avoided this because he knows the issue, but some of the desert theories of entitlement, I think run into the same issues of the Marxist labor theory of value has or whatever. He didn't say, he made a consequentialist case, as you said, or these people had to be able to count on receiving some payment for it in order to make it, and not because they made it they are entitled to it, because it's not actually really possible to determine in cases of joint production what everyone actually made, or what someone individually made, as an individual made. You can have labor value be negative or nil or undefined.
What are the possible solutions to the potential conflict over resources? You think, okay, so here's a possible solution. We fight over resources. That's what happens if you don't have any other rule. Okay, and what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is only the best fighters get goods, and people who are not good at fighting don't get anything, and then that's really bad. And then there's just enormous harm when two people are not sure who's the better fighter, and then they fight out to find out, and then there's enormous harm that occurs that is maybe greater than the value of the goods they're fighting over. And then you have the problem that a lot fewer goods get made because people who are not good at fighting don't make any goods because they're not going to get to keep them. This is a quotation from David Friedman, the economist and anarcho-capitalist. The direct use of physical force is so poor a solution to the problem of limited resources that it is commonly employed only by small children and great nations. Okay, this is another rule. Anybody gets to use any resource they see whenever they want, but you're not allowed to fight with other people. So that gets rid of some of the problems of the first solution. But there's going to be this problem of you don't want to expend a lot of time and effort to create something of value. Because after you create it, you have to use it immediately or somebody else will use it. There's a problem of the tragedy of the commons, which is there might be some resources that have to be husbanded, a certain way to maintain their value, and nobody's going to do that, because other people are going to take it. There's another solution. Maybe we could have it that whenever there's a conflict as to what to do with some resource, we vote on it. Okay, what's the problem with that? There's going to be huge transaction costs, right? And then there's just some general problems with democracy in general. You have a lot of uninformed voters, and people will not be prepared to vote wisely. It's just not going to work out. This is not really feasible. Here's another possibility. People take turns using
this real north.
Resource. Okay, that's not going to be good because the thing is going to be used up by the first couple of people. If there's an apple tree, then the first person whose turn it is will just take all the apples, or they'll eat as much as they can. And again, people will not actually create things of value. Okay, here's another possibility. You have a society in which everyone is a utilitarian and everyone just agrees to do the utility maximizing use. The only problem is that this isn't feasible with real people. Also, by the way, even if everyone was utilitarian, they wouldn't agree on what the utility maximizing use is. Right? Even utilitarians don't agree with each other on what maximizes utility. Okay, and then here's the last solution. You could have each good assigned to a particular person who's the decision maker for what gets done with that good. And this is the only solution I can think of that's not obviously horrible. This is the property rights solution. Now, there are disagreements. So I think this is a solution of every society. Every society has a version of the property rights solution. There are disagreements about whom should.
I don't like.
There are some societies in which the state.
That's not actually a problem for utilitarianism. I think you could insofar as it causes bad outcomes, it's utilitarians would not want to do that thing. He just cited why the consequences from having everyone act like a utilitarian or whatever in this case would be bad. But it's not actually that's utilitarians would agree that if we
here's another
we just you're gonna piss me off. I talked about 5 seconds ago how you are also gonna have to do those types of things, or if you believe in property rights or whatever, or almost any type of sort of natural right, you could maybe say you're gonna be subject to it less often, but you're also gonna have to do some type of calculation between the property rights of an individual and how many photons I can shine on their house.
Possibility. You have a society in which everyone is a utilitarian and everyone just agrees to do the utility maximizing use for each resource. The only problem is that this isn't feasible with real people. Also, by the way, even if everyone...
And also, I do think this I think would generalize to some of the other things he's raised for the other theories, but I do think like a inherent flaw is more evidence against a theory than like there's gotta be a word for it. A flaw that's not inherent. There is a logically possible world where everyone is a 100% informed utilitarian who would make the right decisions, whereas there are other like theories of other features of a theory where in order to get around it, you can't just have a logically possible world. You'd have to like change some element of the theory, like in order to, make the organ harvesting case not apply to utilitarians. You kind of have to change some element of utilitarianism. Like if you're assuming all the things with the organ harvesting case, that would make it applicable.
One was a utilitarian, they wouldn't agree on what the utility maximizing use is. Right? Even utilitarians don't agree with each other on what maximizes utility. Okay, and then here's the last solution. You could have each good assigned to a particular...
I forgive you, Jabringo.
...person who's the decision maker for what gets done with that good. And this is the only solution I can think of that's not obviously horrible. This is the property rights solution. Now, there are disagreements. So I think this is a solution of every society. Every society has a version of the property rights solution. There are disagreements about who should own the property. So there's some societies in which like the state owns a lot more of the property, like socialist or communist societies. But I don't think there's really disagreement about the basic solution that there should be somebody who's the decision maker. Okay, and there could be qualifications, like you don't get complete decision control. You don't get to decide on just anything that could be owned. So there could be restrictions on what you're allowed to do with the property, but there's still within certain constraints. There's generally a decision maker. Okay, so that's the essence of property rights. As far as I can tell, there isn't a feasible alternative solution. Right, and so on general rule utilitarian grounds, we should respect property rights. All right, that's my spiel.
Yeah, great. So I'll try to briefly make the case against property rights, against the existence of natural property rights, which, Mike has helpfully sort of outlined for us, right? Sort of emphasize that property is a bundle of rights, right? We might think that typically if you own something in a moral sense, right, you have claims against other people using it without your permission. You have the power to waive those claims, to transfer those claims. You have permission to use the thing as you like. Right. And also we might think that you have the permission to coercively enforce these rights. There's some question about whether or not that's just sort of a necessary feature of having a right, whether rights are by definition coercively enforceable. I'll sort of set that aside for now. And basically, I think there are some persuasive reasons for thinking that people do not have at least many of the rights in this purported bundle. And I'll give a couple. So the first worry I have is about the permission to coercively enforce these rights, right? So one issue with private property is that, if you have these rights, you can coercively enforce them. You can stop people from using your stuff, using force. And in my view, and I think in Mike's view, coercion, there's a pretty high standards of justification that have to be met if you're going to permissibly coerce anybody. There's coercion is, at least prima facie wrong.
I think PBs developed the notion of property rights even before they developed object permanence. I don't know. I don't think that's true. I think like non-human animals, like monkeys and birds, like they don't have a conception of property rights, but they still they seem to actually have, from my understanding, some intuitive understanding of like fairness and some sort of not understanding of property rights, but they obviously recognize if they have resources, they don't want other people stealing those resources. But I don't think that actually is like some conception of property rights, especially because they also violate others' property rights probably more routinely than like humans do or whatever. Why do you hate animals? I'm willing to grant them unsophisticated thoughts. I don't hate animals. I'm just saying I don't think animals have a conception of property rights in any more meaningful sense than a baby. Like,
and so if you're getting coercively enforcing property rights, then you need to justify that. And my worry is that many of the purported justifications for this coercion don't work. So let me sort of start by trying to illustrate why we might think that coercive enforcement of property rights is at least sort of troubling intuitively. Right. So I think there's various cases that might illustrate this. Right. So suppose one case I give is suppose that we're all on a cruise ship, we're cruising around, and we come upon some previously undiscovered islands. Right. Nobody owns them. Nobody's ever been there before. Nobody's seen them. Nobody knew they existed. And the cruise ship sort of pulls up and gets to the island. The gangplank goes down. Everybody's excited. They say, "Oh wow, we can't wait to go on the island and explore. This will be so fun." But I run onto the island first and I say, "This is mine. I claim this. This is actually Jesse's island now, and I forbid you all from going on the island. And anybody who comes on, I'm going to forcibly remove."
I don't think animals can understand property rights. Why do you hate animals? I know.
And obviously, you're probably not going to be happy with this. You say, "Hey, who made you the boss?"
Non-fun, known animal hater. Okay, shrimp welfare enthusiast, vegan, Known animal hater.
Why do you get to decide who uses the island? And I say, well, I found it tough, finders keepers, right? And then you say, well, whatever, and you come on the island, and then I tie you up and I sort of forcibly remove you, I spray some sunscreen in your eyes, and I force you back on the boat. I think intuitively it seems like I've done something wrong here. And so then the thought is, well, this coercion, I coerced you, and then the thought is, well, this coercion needs to be justified, right? What could justify this coercion? Because right, this is the same thing that at least property owners do all the time, at least tacitly or via the state, right? To sort of have, right, when they enforce their property claims, they're using coercion against people. So the thought is, if you really have private property, there must be something special about that that justifies this coercion. And basically, I just think that most of the purported justifications for this coercion don't work. So I have a bunch that I consider, which we can get into if we want. But let me also give a quick example, right? So I think one very plausible justification is one that Mike sort of offered in his, at least in his opening remarks, which is that private property really delivers the goods, right? If you allow people to sort of do this kind of coercive enforcement, then that actually makes us all better off, right? We're all much richer, right? If we didn't have private property, the world would be poor and miserable. It'd be a sort of Hobbesian type state of nature in many ways. At least.
You tell my dog he doesn't have a conception of property rights. He's 110 pounds. Go take his teddy bear right now, I dare you.
I presented $10 to Pringo. This is true. I didn't consider this. I wonder if oh my god, fuck you, Bot Ricks. Why are we doing this? What if we did $10? I wonder if dogs have any like sense of fairness. I know there are experiments where like we give fucking animals some we give like one bird a bunch more nuts than another bird, and he will voluntarily share his nuts with the other bird, and we observe the other bird will like get upset if he doesn't share them and stuff. This is what I was getting at, non-verbal, but it clearly exists. I don't think that's property, right? I think animals like they want to live and they have some instinct that they need resources to live, but I don't think that's what property rights are, right? I don't think they're viewing it as like I don't even know how they would like formalize that. I think it's just like it's just some instinctive survival trait. It's not any type of understanding of like they actually have a claim to this thing. Did I say Chapringo? What did I say?
Resources would be a mess. But the thing is, I worry that actually the fact that sort of coercion would leave everybody better off doesn't seem to actually justify coercion. And I think there's a lot of intuitive cases that sort of draw this out. So, for example, suppose that I'm working at the Sneaku ad agency, and I have an idea for an advertisement that's going to really make our company succeed and thrive. Nobody else recognizes this, right? You all.
That wasn't great. You said this is what it's getting at, non-verbal but clearly existent. I was responding to you. I'm saying they don't have any conception of property rights. They just have like an instinctive survival instinct. Instinctive survival instinct. They have a survival instinct that will make them care about resources. But it's not actually. That's not what I get from having a conception of property rights. But again, they also have a conception of fairness. They will get upset when they see other animals have more than them. Even though, by property rights, you just shouldn't be, like, upset there.
All have really bad ideas about what would make for a good advertisement that's going to make our company go bankrupt. So I pull out a gun and I say, hey, right, you have to do it. You have to make my ad or else. Right? We might think, well, this act of coercion leaves everybody better off. It leaves me better off. It leaves you all much better off than if our company closed down. But I think intuitively it still seems like I acted permissibly in this case. And I think that sort of seems to show that the provision of benefits, the fact that you're leaving people much better off, doesn't necessarily justify coercion. And so then I would worry the same thing would apply to property rights. And I think sort of similar arguments can be given against a number of purported justifications for private property. Okay, so that's one sort of quick argument. A second argument is maybe slightly more abstract, and it's a worry about sort of state legitimacy in general and how worries about state legitimacy actually might apply to private.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm pretty sure we've done experiments with birds too.
So final experiment that I.
But like these are monkeys being paid unequally, and they get pissed, even though.
And see, the other one sees that. See, gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber.
Like, does he not? He doesn't understand property rights. He doesn't understand that this woman is voluntarily paying them different amount. Like.
She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again.
Give my man a grape, bro.
So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
Property. Yeah, so very quickly, I know I'm probably approaching 10 minutes. But the worry is that, right, when people worry about state legitimacy, they worry about whether or not the state has the power to oblige, right? Can the state sort of make us obligated to obey its laws? Can it sort of give us a duty to obey the law just by issuing edicts? And I think many people, including me, and I
He's gonna dream up monkey socialism.
This
is real.
You might think, well, why? Why doesn't the state have this power? And my answer to this question is because there's a particular justified thing that would justify the state having this power, but states just don't, in practice, ever meet this condition. And specifically, I think it's only plausible to think that the state or anybody has the power to oblige you by issuing edicts if you've agreed to obey them. Right? If you promised them that you'll follow their orders, then the state sort of, then they or the state does have the power to oblige you. But if you've never actually consented to this, if you've never actually promised,
You thank me for the $10? It was Grassroots. Oh, thank you, Grassroots, for the $10. Then I appreciate it. Sorry, I'm used to Chipringo being the whale. My bad. I think Grassroots is more of a whale. Chipringo might donate more frequently, but Grassroots donates in bigger quantities. He's more of a whale.
we'll do this, then it doesn't have the power to oblige you. So that's my view. And in practice,
actually, there's more TTS in chat. Click the donate link. Smash like, subscribe.
States and other people generally don't have your consent. But what I want to suggest is that if you have private property rights,
follow me on Twitter.
You have the exact same power to bind people by issuing edicts as a legitimate state, right? So if I own some bit of land, I can say, you can come on this patch of land only if
I have noticed Grassroots on Connor stream and Wick streams. Yeah.
Say you wear exclusively red, right? If you wear an all red outfit to come on this bit of land. That's sort of a rule I can make with respect to my little patch of land, and you then wrong me if you come on my land and say don't wear red. Right? So it seems like to have property rights is to be able to make binding moral rules over a patch of land. But I want to say this is just the same power that legitimate states claim when they say they're legitimate. Right? They say, yeah, within our territory, we can make these rules that are binding such that you wrong the state if you fail to comply with them. But what I want to say is states have this power only if you consent to them having this power. And the same thing is for private individuals.
Grassroots made me do this.
He coerced you into doing it. He violated your property rights. I appreciate it, 4Z. Thanks for the $10. Hold on. Is it going to do it twice again? Watch it. Watch it. It's going to do it. It's going to do it. It's going to do it.
Individuals, right? So to have those moral powers associated with private property, I want to say you have to have gotten the consent of everybody out there. Right? If you want to bind them, if you want to be able to issue these sort of morally binding edicts with respect to some patch of territory.
Fuck. You guys are getting paid double, or getting double your rewards. It's not fair. My property rights are being so violated right now.
People's consent, but obviously nobody's actually consented to the acquisition of most private property, so therefore people don't actually have private property rights over land.
So I think there's...
You have two bots doing this, perhaps? No, it's just the one browser overlay that's playing twice. It doesn't even... I don't know.
So I think there's a general intuition about property rights. Now, so I think Jesse's view was that, in general, if you coerce someone, you require some strong justification for that, which I agree with. But I think that what counts as justification is sort of, well, determined by our ethical intuition. So it's not always consent. Right? So you can get justification for coercing somebody by consent. Like if you're in a boxing match, you're allowed to punch the other person in the face because they consented by getting a boxing match. Okay, but it doesn't have to be that. So most people also think that you can coerce somebody if doing so is necessary to prevent them from doing some wrongful action, from coercing another person. You can also have cases where like somebody owes a person. Let's say somebody owes another person compensation, and that's going to be enforced coercively, right? So like person A.
The timer's set to, I think, well, it depends on the alert. For super chats, it's 15 seconds.
Sues person B in court and wins, and then B still doesn't want to pay the money, and then the government forces them to pay. Okay, so like there could be different justifications for coercion, and what counts as a legitimate justification is sort of determined by our ethical intuitions. Now, and so I think most people would have the ethical intuition that it is permissible to use coercion to protect your property. And of course, there are limits, like you can't just kill somebody because they got on your land, but you can like push them off your land or something like that. Okay, and you might say, well, oh, so why doesn't this work for just defending government authority, which I deny? Right? So why can't somebody just say, oh, well, we have an intuition that the government has?
If the timer's too long, it's going to repeat. But it didn't used to do that. It's playing the like sound alert twice and stuff. Hold on, it didn't do it with that though. Oh my god, Bot Riggs, thanks for the 669 Great British Pounds. Like the GIF is supposed to repeat. But it's just supposed to do that.
Authority over other people. I think basically the answer is that we don't. So when I give this, I give this story about a person who,
hey, beach your go.
Where the person decides to go around collecting taxes and giving money to poor and like telling people what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and then so almost everyone has an intuition that that is wrong, unacceptable behavior, and almost everybody sees the analogy to government, like what I'm describing this person doing is like what the government does, and then when I ask, so why is it okay for the government to do it? Like nobody's response is, oh, it's just intuitive, it doesn't need any explanation, right? Like everybody sees the point, everyone sees that it needs an explanation. And now it is very widely held that the government is entitled to do these things, and so people sort of struggle to find the explanation for why they're allowed to do these things. So, like in some sense, you might say it's intuitive to people that the state has authority, but at the same time, most people recognize that you do need a further explanation. Like it's not just a basic fact that this 535 people in Washington have authority over the rest of us. There's got to be something about them. And then when you look at the explanation that people give for what about them is special, then people pull out. Okay, now when it comes to property, I think it's.
I don't see why the like rural utilitarian grounds. Now I don't think this would grant them like intrinsic authority or whatever. But like I don't see why the rural utilitarian grounds from doing this thing, because it has all these benefits, wouldn't apply to some amount of redistribution. And if that doesn't give, I don't think that technically would give like any intrinsic authority or whatever to 535 people in Washington D.C. But if that's the case, then I kind of don't see why it would imply any sort of intrinsically existing natural property rights.
Possible to say no, this is just like it's just a fundamental thing. Like one of the fundamental exceptions to the rule against coercion is if coercion is necessary to protect your property.
Shout out, my dear elderly mother has decided to get up early so she can take me clothes shopping. My rags are fine. Good night, sweet friends. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, Chipringo. Yeah.
Okay, the other thing I want to say about is the rule utilitarian rationale. That look, if we don't have this, things are going to go badly. I have a general sympathy for utilitarianism, and okay, so Jesse gave another example. The example where you're working for an advertising agency and like you've come. I think this came from my book actually. You've thought of a good plan for your company to do, and the other people are not agreeing with it, so you're just going to force them to go along with it. Yeah. Well, okay. And like how is this different? I mean, one thing is I don't know. You're kind of actually violating the other people's property rights when you're doing that. But the other thing I want to say is okay. Like I don't think that this comes out okay on rule utilitarianism. Right. Although there is sort of like a question about at what level of generality you have to state the rules. Okay. But I think it's going to be that like the beneficial social rules are not going to allow you to do that. But the most beneficial social rules are going to allow there to be a general institution of property rights. And so like for the reasons I described previously, I just think society is going to fall apart if you don't have an institution of property. Right. But like nothing bad is going to happen if you have a prohibition on forcing people in your company to go along with your plan. Actually, that's probably going to be good in general. So that's my thing.
Okay, great. So I guess maybe I'll focus on the initial statement that you did, Mike, and then maybe I'll get to the rebuttal. We'll see. So I guess what I would want to say is I guess I'll start with I want to start with your hermit case, right? So I mean, I guess a lot of maybe our disagreement could hinge on like what intuitions people have. So I guess we'll really get into like what intuitions we have and what explains them, et cetera. I guess you've kind of tried to give something of I guess maybe not quite a debunking explanation of my intuitions, but you at least want to say, well, I've given some intuitions, sort of some intuitive worries about property. But we have a lot of intuitive sort of reasons for thinking people do have property. And you gave the hermit case in your initial statement. I guess my worry about that case is that I feel like there are other potential explanations of why we might think, because I agree, I share the intuition that it would be wrong to go and take the hermit stuff. But I worry that there are other explanations of that intuition besides the fact that the hermit has property rights vis-a-vis those things. Right. So one thing that I want to suggest, and that I sort of defend elsewhere, is that I want to say, well, in the absence of property rights, what should govern the permissible use of resources? And what I want to say is that resources should be governed in an egalitarian fashion, such that we do have, in my view, rights vis-a-vis resources, and we have claims against other people using resources, but they're egalitarian claims. So you have claims against people using resources in ways that roughly would leave you worse off through no fault of your own. We're wealthy tourists coming in on, presumably.
What was that?
And now we're making things even worse for them, right? We're sort of exacerbating inequality. And what I want to say, that seems wrong, and that's why it seems like we wrong the hermit when we take their stuff. By contrast, right, if you imagine things very differently, if you imagine the hermit is sort of a very sort of super wealthy person and you're a poor refugee who's just washed up on shore, right? You're starving, right? You've got nothing. You're just like, cast away on a raft. Well, now I don't think it seems so counterintuitive that you can, start eating the coconuts on the island. And I think if they came out and said, sorry, those are my coconuts, you can't have them, right? Or, you can't sort of take shelter here. This is my island. This is my house. I think that sort of seems less plausible. So I want to say there's actually a debunking explanation here. I don't think that the Sneaku case is that different from, the sort of rule utilitarian case that Mike is making for property rights. And I think a lot of this is going to come down to the generality of the rules. Because Mike's right that, a rule that, the rule nobody can sort of, violently assault their coworkers is probably a good rule. But seemingly the best rule is that nobody can violently sort of menace their coworkers with a gun, except in this one case where they're about to make a really disastrous decision that's going to bankrupt the company, and you'll save the day, right? It seems like that's a better rule. And so in some sense, I think that the person in Mike's Sneaku case is sort of following the optimal rule. They're doing the best possible thing, for society. They're following the best possible rule to a T, and yet it doesn't seem permissible. So I actually do think that the analogy persists here. And then I guess the one final thing I'll say is that
I guess Mike he was kind of appealing to it. But that's just like a general critique of real utilitarianism, and I think to my understanding, real utilitarians is kind of they are okay with like having a rule that is going to lead to bad consequences sometimes, as long as it leads to like overall good consequences. Is my understanding. I do think it's kind of I don't know how real utilitarians exactly get around trying to define how narrow or how broad like a rule is, but yeah. And I think it's a little weird to. I think there are other issues, but regardless.
Mike sort of challenged the sort of symmetry between property and authority, right? And wants to say, well, look, it seems like people don't have the intuition that authority is justified, that states are legitimate, right? They do think that that is something that needs to be justified sort of as a default. And that's why, we sort of appeal to more fundamental, sort of more primal, I guess, intuitions that we have about, your neighbor running around and taxing you and trying to lock you up if you smoke marijuana or whatever. But I think the same thing is true of property rights, right? Like, and in some sense, I think my island case sort of illustrates that, right? That, we, I think, take for granted, property rights sort of a natural institution in just the same way that we take for granted the state. But I think once we sort of demystify these things and we try to put them in more sort of, pedestrian terms and sort of recreate analogous everyday scenarios, I think in both cases, the intuition that these sorts of, the coercion of the state and the coercion of private property owners, I think both start to seem suspect once we kind of make them, strip away the mystifications that we're sort of socialized into. So I do actually think there's a deeper symmetry there. So that would be what I would say in response to that point.
Yeah, so one of my examples with a hermit is you paint his hut lime green. And the point of that example is it's not tangibly harmful to him, but you still can't do that. Right? And so the idea was that this is not explained just by norm against harming people. Or another variant is you go to the island and the hermit has made a spear and also you make a spear. You can take the one that you made with you. You can't take the one that he made with you. Even though the—
Hold on, real quick. I like this mini critique here. For the rule utilitarian, the main reason for obeying the rules is that doing so will normally have the best consequences. If because of a general long-term change in relevant circumstances, obeying the rule would no longer have the best consequences, the rule utilitarian would jettison the rule. Given that rule utilitarians must be willing to consider such a question, should there be a change in conditions that makes general observance of the rule have bad consequences, it is odd that they insist that we continue to obey the rule when we find ourselves in individually unusual circumstances in which doing so will have worse consequences than not obeying it. I like that.
The effect on him is the same. Right? Like, if you'd made the spear and you take it with you, it has the same effect on him. Now he can't use that spear. If he made the spear and you take it with him, now he can't use that spear, right? So it's not really explained by harm unless you have a notion of harm that's sort of infected with your beliefs about the person's property. Right?
Interesting. So I like the spear case. Can I jump in? Yeah. I still wonder if it does maybe the work you want. So let's say we reimagine the case slightly, such that I've made a spear, he's made a spear, they're exactly identical. They're like sort of perfect replicas. And now, but imagine now they're sort of like they get put in a closet and they get kind of shuffled up, right? And now I sort of take away, and I take his spear by accident, leaving the other spear behind. It seems like on your view, you're going to say I've actually done something pretty wrong. Like I've wronged him here intuitively. But intuitively to me, I'm not sure about that, right? To me, it seems like, well, if they're really truly qualitatively identical spears, it actually does seem like a matter of indifference, at least intuitively to me, which spear I take. So I am actually maybe not sure that this case is going to sort of work in favor of the theory of property rights.
I mean, if there's no way of knowing, neither of you know which one was made by him, then I guess it's permissible to take either one. But yeah,
I'm surprised. Did he come up with that example on the fly?
It's likely to have two spears that are distinguishable, and they're about equally good.
I'm surprised he hasn't heard something like that before. If he came up with this on a fly, that was impressive. That was goated.
Then you have to take the one you made. Or I mean, the other variant on it is there's just one spear, and either it was made by you or it was made by him, and that determines whether you're allowed to take it with you. Right? So like if you take the one spear with you, then he doesn't have any spear to hunt with. But if you had made it in the first place, then it's okay to do that.
Yeah, but but there I worry that I think the egalitarian intuitions will both sort of function as both a debunking explanation and maybe a potential counterexample, right? So suppose that it is the only spear that he has to hunt with, and I just take it with me for fun. I take it back to civilization, back to New Zealand. I think in that case, most people would think that I'm doing something wrong, and that even though I made it.
I mean, maybe you made it specifically for the purpose of taking it back with you, and then you can't take it back. But I mean, you're kind of sort of like mixing in other considerations because maybe you have a humanitarian obligation to give assistance to this person, right? But why are we supposing that you and the other person are in different circumstances, right? Like maybe you and he have exactly as much need for that spear, okay? But if you're the one who made it, then you get to take it, and if he's the one who made it, then he gets to take it, right?
Yeah, right. So I do think So I admit that I'm complicating things because I am positing this sort of auxiliary theory, right? And so that sort of does make it a little bit harder to sort of it complicates the intuitive judgment because we have to imagine the world on one theory and the world on the other theory. I guess what I would say is that I do think that the more I agree that there's going to be some intuitions that are going to sort of run contrary to my I think there's going to be intuitions that sort of cut against both theories, right? So I think the identical spear case sort of cuts against the theory of property. But I do think that your point is I think many people would have the intuition that if there's only one spear, it goes to whoever made the spear. But even then, I think I can offer a pretty good egalitarian debunking explanation of that intuition, right? So I can say, well, look, the reason that people have that intuition is because making things takes work. Presumably, it was costly to make the spear, right? And so then, if I made the spear, well, I've now incurred this cost. If you now take it, well, that's going to create an inequality, even assuming that all else is equal, right? Assuming we would get equal benefit from the spear.
I don't know.
Right? We might think, well, yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's the reason behind that intuition. There might be broader. Maybe I'm reading into it because I'm a consequentialist. Okay, I think more people, maybe I'm wrong, would care not about the sort of inequality there because presumably it takes work to make the sphere, but they would care about the consequences from not having some property rights regime, and none of that strikes me as, the property rights regime there being intrinsic again, just instrumentally the benefits from having that, as well as any of the. Michael Human brought us up. the incentives to produce stuff, obviously. So.
Inequality has been generated here, and that I can use that to explain why it seems impermissible to take things that other people made. Right. By contrast, if I love making the spear and I had a great time doing it, well, then I think then I think the intuition starts to become much less clear that it's the wrong thing for you to take it if, say, we would both equally benefit from the spear. Or something.
Oh, that's a good example, though.
Though it also, I think, is very murky just because it's a weird case for, at least in my view, because when you have like sort of non-divisible goods and like how they should be, like if you can't sort of have an equal distribution, then I think it's sort of unclear how you resolve that. Yeah, right. So I think in cases of in cases of non-divisible goods, then my sort of
why do they? There's so many cuts in this video.
Answer about what to do in those cases. So I don't really know what exactly I want to say. If there's only one spear and only one of us can get it, I don't know. Then maybe finders keepers or like makers is sort of like a tiebreaker. I'm not sure, but I don't think that's going to establish that people sort of have the kind of property rights that I think you want to posit.
Yeah. So I'm not sure why taking the spear that the other person made creates an inequality. I mean, what if I just like wasted a bunch of time doing nothing, and you spend the same amount of time making a spear, and then I take the spear. So then we both have sort of like the same total welfare, apart from the spear, right? So.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, in some sense, this is why I think that, and again, this is sort of maybe unfairly leaning heavily on my theory, right? But I want
this chopped to shit, isn't it? Yeah, there's a lot of cuts. I don't know. He might just be cutting out like the
Right. So in some sense, like what you're giving, I think, is sort of the classic motivating example that like luck egalitarians are motivated by, which is like, if you're just lazing around all day and then I'm working hard and like produce a bunch of stuff, then luck egalitarians can say, you don't distribute the goods equally, right? That actually would be unfair and objectionable, right? You sort of ending up worse off is in some sense your own fault. You've made a kind of sanctionable choice that justifies an inequality. And so again, I think that the animating thoughts about who gets to use the resources, like I totally agree with your case. If you're just lounging around, I'm doing all the work. We shouldn't split the resources equally. But I'm like, that's actually a luck egalitarian intuition, not sort of a proprietarian intuition is what I would want to say.
Right. I mean, so I wasn't imagining that I was sitting around doing nothing. I was doing some work that didn't produce a benefit.
We're sort of assuming you're guiltless here, right? Is kind of the thought is that you.
Yeah. So one possibility. I was doing some work that I thought was going to be useful, but it wasn't.
Right. And work that actually was useful. And we maybe assume that you're maybe. I think to make this a good case, like we want it to be that you're justified in believing this, right? So you're not being negligent, right? You followed your best evidence. You really thought this was going to pan out, and then just kind of through bad luck, it didn't. Something like that. Yeah. So I think in that case, yeah. So basically, what I want to say is that what I want to say is that in that case, it does actually seem to me again like the intuitions start to get much murkier, right? If I'm really trying my best to do something, or I guess you're trying your best to do something, but it just doesn't work out as a matter of bad luck, then it does kind of seem to me like resources should be split equally in that case, right? So suppose I produce a bunch of food, we both grow a crop. Your crop just doesn't pan out because of a bad weather condition, right? You thought it would grow really well, it doesn't grow really well because of just bad luck. Mine grows really well. It does seem to me like you wouldn't be doing anything wrong if you sort of ate half of my crop. I don't know. Maybe you don't share that intuition.
Yeah. I guess I think that most people would be on my side on that. But okay, but I think you can sort of like.
I don't know. It probably depends on the severity of it. I don't know if most people would be on humorous side on that, but I could definitely like. I don't think it's crazy to have the opposite intuition in that case.
That the person is going to literally starve. Like if you're literally going to starve, then you're entitled to take some food to keep yourself alive. Which you wouldn't ordinarily be entitled to.
Yeah, right. So I do think it needs to be right. Yeah, I agree that if it's sort of starvation cases like that, maybe skews our intuitions. So I do kind of think that the case would be like, yes, it's just going to be, there's just going to be an inequality generated.
So here's an example. Like you and I are both investing in the stock market, and I picked a stock that went up, and you picked one that went down, and we were equally diligent. During
oh no!
Well, I get the money.
Don't say that.
Take the loss.
How
we need the sovereign wealth fund.
The question then is like, would that justify the sort of associated coercion, right? Like. So I mean, like what ideally like to come up with is, I feel like the good case would be one where we sort of imagine that sort of there's a luck-based differential, and then one person does that justify sort of one person then coercively excluding the other person from resources, right? So say we both grow crops, yours grows a bit, you're like okay, but mine grows really well through sort of pure luck, and then you sort of come over and try to help. You're like, well, look, I'm sort of hungry, like I'm doing okay, I'm not gonna starve to death, but I'm like sort of hungry. Meanwhile, I'm just sort of living the best life possible, right? And I say, sorry, you can't like if you come on and you try to eat my peanuts, like I'm gonna lock you up, right? I'm gonna tie you up and sort of tie you to this tree. Right, to me, that starts to seem like I may be wronging you, and I think that the intuition that it wouldn't be permissible to sort of enforce my rights in that case would be, can be sort of explained by, I think my egalitarian theory of rights sort of explains that intuition. Well, I feel like the proprietarian sort of answer gives the property rights theory gives the wrong answer in that case.
Yeah, I would have thought it was intuitive that whichever one of us had the better food can't exclude the other one. So like I can't injure you, I shouldn't injure you, but I could push you off the land to stop you from getting the food. I guess I think that is intuitive. Maybe there's a difference in intuitions between left-wing and right-wing people. But I don't think that this is like a particularly extreme. Like I think I have the mainstream intuition, although I have not done a survey on this.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess I do feel some pull of the intuition. I guess what I would say is I feel like the question is right. I think when we sort of I guess maybe the test would be like I think if we holistically consider. I guess what I'd say the test would be if we holistically consider sort of the broad scope of intuitions, right? I think in some sense we'd want to do something like reflective equilibrium.
Didn't Scott Besant endorse one because Trump said he was gonna fucking do one at one point? Or I think Scott Besant was like put in charge of like researching the possibility of one. It was one of those like executive orders that Trump signs because it like creates headlines, and it's basically a nothing burger where where it's like we're gonna investigate the possibility of maybe setting up something like this maybe in 12 months.
where there's questions of, what interest do we have about this range of cases, and what theoretical justifications can we offer for those intuitions, and sort of how well do they line up? So I guess sort of the skeptical challenge that I would raise against property is the very least I want to say, look, I can give you some cases where property rights theories give you very counterintuitive results, right? Like my island case, I'd say like the identical sphere case, basically cases where there's a significant inequality between people if property rights are enforced, and then I can complement that with theoretical sort of supporting arguments, which is like, well, yeah, what is the justification? Why think that we have these property rights sort of beyond the raw intuitions, right? The intuitions are doing some work, but can we sort of give a general, adequately satisfying explanation about why people have these rights and why, say, given instances of coercion are permissible? Right? What makes coercion justifiable in these instances? And I think that's very hard to do. And so that's sort of would be, I think, the thrust of my skeptical challenge would be like, counterintuitions and sort of the theoretical approach.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Maybe we should talk more about your example of the cruise ship coming to the island.
Yeah. Right.
To me, that's just a story about what could be the legitimate ways of acquiring property rather than about whether property is legitimate in general. So, well, you don't acquire the whole island just by standing on the island and saying that it's yours before somebody else does. And and I don't think you acquire the coconuts just by seeing them and then saying that they're yours, right? But so that's why, like in my example, the things that I ascribe the hermit property rights over are the things that he made, right? So he's not just taking some resource that was already there that had the same value and then saying that it's his. He's like, he's building the hut or something like that, which I think is a better case for owning property.
How would you ever
get to own the stuff that's just like there in nature?
Yeah, great. So, but I think that in some sense, what then we could understand you doing is offering a justification. Like, I think people give like a theory of acquisition of property. In some sense, we might think that that's functioning as a justification for the property rights, right? So, I think,
I think for one, you would run kind of into the problem of everyone, like literally everything has natural inputs to it, obviously, and two, like, I mean, usually a libertarian like answer or whatever is like, if you make an improvement, then you get ownership over the whole thing. Which would still grant you, obviously, the ability to acquire the things that exist in nature. Like, if you build a fence around the coconut tree, do you own all the coconut trees around your fence or whatever? Because a lot of libertarians will say yes to that.
You might think, yeah, the reason that you're justified...
We love a powerful, economically minded gay in this fucking house.
Is because you made this thing, right? And say the fact that you labored on this sort of justifies you then excluding it from them, right? Yes, you can't just claim things. That's not a suitable justification. But if I've labored on something, well, now there's sort of justification there.
Whoa.
But again, I'm like maybe a little skeptical that this sort of...
Why do I even try to react?
That those kinds of justifications work as well, right? So sort of here's, I can give you my skeptical case quickly. So basically, here's my worries, right? So imagine that I have a car that I own, right? Grant me ownership rights. But now I give you permission to do a bunch of work on it, right? I say, okay, I'm waiving, or at least, I'm waiving my rights, my claims against you. And you sort of invest a bunch of labor, sort of modifying my car, painting it, renovating it, etc. And I say, well, then I drive off in it, right? And you say, hey, I did all this work on it, right? You're taking my work, my hard labor that I did, and then you sort of rip me out of the car and sort of tie me up, right? I'd say, well, it seems like you acted wrongly. But what I'd say is that actually it seems like when you labor on unowned things, I actually think you're doing something totally analogous, right? So say there's some unowned thing, an unowned tree, and you start doing a bunch of work on it and modifying it and improving it. Well, the fact that it's unowned, that means that sort of I have a permission to use it, right? So we might think, yeah, well, basically what I say is in the car case, right, you have no complaint about me driving off with your labor because I have a permission to do that, right? Sort of in virtue of the bundle of ownership rights I have over that car, well, those include permissions to use the car. So that when I then exercise those permissions, right, you have seemingly no basis for complaint about me driving off with your labor, even though you've done all this work on the car. But in some sense, I think the same thing is true of unknown things, right? If you do a bunch of labor on an unknown tree, and then I sort of say, take the tree and sort of carry off, whatever you've done with it, you made a chair out of it, I carry off the chair. I think similarly, you have no basis for complaint because you knew going into it, right? When you did all this,
oh my God, it's so cut up.
To use this thing, you did the labor anyway, right? And I think, well, yeah, in some sense, you knew that I had the permission to do this. You have no complaint if I then exercise that permission. And I think that's sort of the theoretical debunking explanation I would get, or it's not a debunking explanation. That's a theoretical sort of argument I would raise against the idea that say like working on things justifies, coercively excluding people from them. Again, sorry, that got really choppy. Hopefully that came across.
Yeah, good. So yeah, in a case where I work on your car, I mean, I think that I assume that I knew in advance that it was your car, and we didn't make any agreements about you losing any ownership or about you paying me. So then I would think that if I worked on a car anyway, then I was basically consenting to you having the value that resulted from that. Now, in the case where somebody acquires property rights by working on some land, well, the actual conventions of our society are such that the person who's working on the land, like they would not be agreeing to give the value to somebody else. They would be expecting to get the value for themselves because that's according to the conventions of our society, or even the laws. Right?
Yeah, so, right. Yes, I like that. I like that argument a lot. So, right, so maybe the thought is we think, yeah, there's sort of consent being given in the car case, but not in the land case. But then I wonder if maybe we can modify the car case such that we can sort of stipulate that consent isn't being given, right? So I say, hey, like you can sort of modify, you can work on my car, and you say, okay, great. And you're like, but I don't want you driving off with it, right? Like this, I'm going to do all this work. And suppose I just kind of be like, he's being crazy. I don't know exactly how the case would work, but right, I kind of don't. I don't know I don't lead you on or anything, but I kind of just like ignore you, right? You write me a long note and you say, I'm going to do a bunch of work on your car, but I refuse. You better not drive off with it, right? And take it after I do all this hard labor. Then you sort of slip it under my door, and then you do all this work, and then I drive off with the car, right? So you're sort of explicitly not consenting. Still, seemingly, I don't think I wrong you when I do that, and I would wrong you. And you would wrong me if you sort of try to coercively stop me from using the car, I think. So I want to say that it's maybe not consent that's doing the work in this case. It is just the fact that you're doing labor on a thing that I have permissions to use. And so as a result, you're kind of, you're walking in with your eyes open, right? You know that I have the permission to do this. And so therefore, you can't sort of coercively stop me from doing this thing just because you did work on the thing.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah. So you said, well, yeah, I knew going in that you had the permissions to use this thing, but in the case of somebody acquiring property, I mean, this doesn't really happen anymore. But I don't know, back when people were homesteading land that was whatever unused, people would have been expecting to get to keep the land.
I mean, we do have squatters' rights, and what's the it might still be called squatters' rights. But like if you, oh, what the fuck? It popped out tab instead of opening a new one. Like for example, if you just build like a fucking fence and like the fence is like 1 foot into your neighbor's property and your neighbor doesn't notice it and they don't do anything about it for years. How important are at? I don't know what you're trying to say. Is that called squatters' rights? Or is that, oh, adverse possession? We do have that. Transfer right to you on a scale from 1 to 10. It might depend a little bit on the context of first of all, what you mean by transfer right. Second of all, by like how much do I vote on it versus how much do I like think they're good and care that it matters. I would generally say, like, I don't focus on trans issues very much. Like, I would probably say like a 4, maybe.
The products that they got from it, from doing the work on it, and then like the social conventions would have backed them up on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And like there would have been a legitimate expectation, that other people.
Right, but it seems like a lot of ways going to lean on legitimate, right? Because again, we can modify the car case such that wait, who's doing work on the car? You're doing the work. Anyway, I'm doing the work. You're doing the work.
I was working on your car, and I gave you this note that said I don't want you driving off afterwards. Right. In spite of my giving you that note, I still know that the rules of our society allow you to drive off with you.
I appreciate you volunteering to be the person doing the deranged work on the car. Yeah, right. So again, we might say, suppose we could stipulate that you have expectations, right? You expect that you're going to keep the car after all this, right? You might think, so you can use the car. And you think, okay, great. I don't know, maybe you're just raised in a family with idiosyncratic conventions. I don't know. Again, it doesn't seem to me like that changes anything. So
Wait,
then
do you know that I have this expectation?
Yo.
Working on anything doesn't make ownership. Ownership occurs in an instant with a signature.
Thanks for the $10, Grassroots. I appreciate it. I mean, they're making an argument about unowned things, and he's using the car example to, why are we doing this, Botrix? The test alert doesn't do it, but the real alert does. Whatever.
It's wrong.
I appreciate the $10. Thank you.
Telling me that you don't plan to satisfy my expectations.
Yeah, that seems plausible to me, but I don't. Yeah, I would buy that, but I don't know if it would bear on the property case, because in the property case, the permission isn't being sort of given by anyone; it's just sort of a natural permission. So yeah, I think I can grant that and be like, yeah, it would. If I knew that you had these weird expectations and I sort of let you work on the car anyway, then yeah, maybe I'm doing something wrong there, right? But yeah, suppose I don't know, right? I waive the rights. You have this weird expectation. You labor on the car. Again, it still seems like your expectations aren't sort of doing the work, because we might think that they're sort of maybe not legitimate, right? It seems like legitimate expectations is going to be important, but then I worry that that's going to sort of just get into this. It's going to sort of become a little bit circular, right? Because it's like, well, the reason that your expectation isn't legitimate is because that's sort of just not how property rights work, right? Like, I have a right to the car. You don't understand that. Like, in some sense, you don't understand the moral fact. Is kind of what I think is going on there. But then I think you can't really appeal to legitimate expectations about property without getting into some kind of circle. I'm not sure. I don't fully have a clear vision here, but that's kind of, yeah.
I mean, maybe the reason my expectation is illegitimate is that it's just contrary to the way things work in our society, and nobody gave me reason to think that it would work differently in this case.
Yeah. So I guess that's a move that you could make. I'm like a little bit skeptical, just because I'm in some sense like, yeah, I mean, I have slight sort of skepticism about like the work that social conventions can do in terms of like making things morally binding upon people, right? So it's like, if you have the expectation that this is sort of how property works, like that if you do a bunch of work on a car, you kind of get to not keep it per se, but you get to sort of decide what's done with it. And a lot of other people just don't have that view and expectation. It's not clear to me that just adding a bunch of people, like if this is, like, say this is how you've always done things with your family, right? Whoever does, you work on a thing, you get to kind of keep it effectively, right? And that's just not how anybody else does things. It's not clear to me that then, well, we have, that we all have the convention, right? In the idiosyncratic humor clan, right? That your expectation is not legitimate just because there's like fewer of you who do things this way, I guess would be my sort of.
What if there's a society in which when you do work on somebody's car, then you get to keep the car? And if that were publicly known, even if you don't agree with that convention, if you had then given me permission to do the work on the car, then I think you're giving up the car.
I mean, that seems right to me, but that sort of seems like if I know that and that's the convention, then it does sort of seem like I'm consenting.
Oh, look it up, but all this shit is like people hearing like the audio twice could save like 2 browser sources playing the same audio, but like I only have one Browser source is just playing one after another. Why?
In that case. Yeah, so that's
As a libertarian righty, this is not the argument. I mean,
still sort of holding the force of the initial example and being like, yeah, right.
I don't know, like libertarians will disagree, obviously. This is the argument that a lot of libertarians make.
It's one thing if I sort of, if there's a conventional signaling system and I sort of signal consent through that conventional signaling system, it does seem like a consent. But it seems like the issue in the case, the worry that I have about sort of the acquisition of private property is that there's not necessarily like an established, like nobody's consenting in that case, right? You're just sort of doing work on a thing that I have a default permission to use, right? And I don't give any sort of consent to you sort of, to giving up any claims, any permissions that I have to use that thing, right? So that's sort of the thought where I'm like, well, yeah, then, as a result, if you then work on it, that's kind of just tough, right? You've
only at the anarchists the whole consent issue. If you don't consent to what society does to you, society will not indulge you. Real.
Lost your labor.
I mean, in fairness, I think they're trying to talk more like intrinsic. That's
claim the thing in just the same way that you working on the car.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about the real utilitarian rationale, right?
Yeah, we've sort of run that into the ground, but it was interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, so that if this was the conventions of our society that you do some labor on some land and that does not change your rights at all, and then other people can just like take the food that you grew, or they can live in the house they built, stuff like that. This would be really bad. Like like we would not have a civilization if that was our convention.
Yeah, good. So I mean, this is where I probably be the most concessive, because in some sense, like what I'm most interested in is just what sort of, I think there's separate questions like what rights do people have vis-a-vis objects, and then there's sort of a practical question, because in some sense I think what rights people have are going to actually be like hard to determine as a practical matter. Right. So in some sense, I think almost any moral theory that sort of suffers from this problem. I mean, obviously, like, utilitarian says, suffer from this problem. Like, just use the property in whatever the best way is. It's like, okay, well, what's the best way? I don't know. Right. So for utilitarians, right, there's like, just use the property in the best way possible. It's like, okay, well, maybe that's right, but like, what do we do in practice? I don't know. Maybe property conventions are just the most practical way to do things. Maybe. Right. And in some sense, like I offer sort of, in some sense, we might think like, I mean, say you're a pure Nozickian, right? You're actually going to run into similar problems of like, oh yeah, the person with the rights over the thing is the person who sort of has this sort of unmolested chain of transfer, where nobody's ever sort of stolen or taken the thing. It's like, okay, well, which of those things have that history? Again, good luck finding out. But it's just kind of like all, I think, moral theories sort of, or at least many of them suffer.
You're right in a way, but that's why I talked utilitarianism. Cringe. Wait, what's the reason why? I don't think I gave a reason for that. Maybe, hold on, maybe...
Problem. And I sort of offer it.
Maybe it's because I have this thing set up.
Right.
And not you the speaker? Okay, that makes
it sort of suffers from the same thing, right? So look, in my view, right, people should use resources in an egalitarian way, right? So you should use resources in whatever way sort of, gives people their fair share of utility, basically. What is that? I don't know. And in the absence of not knowing, I don't know, maybe something like property conventions is sort of, maybe that's the best we've got. Though at the very least, I then think that where I'd be less consensus with, I'd say, well, maybe property conventions are sort of pretty good, but there's probably things that, like, at least in my view, would be better, like property conventions with like a lot of egalitarian redistribution going on. So you're still not going to end up with sort of the kind of like, I think, property rights that I think you might want to have. But I still sort of think, trying to actually like figure out, what egalitarian uses of things are is like impossible. So yeah, maybe some sort of, for practical purposes, maybe we have something like property, but still probably not like libertarian property, I think is what I want to say here.
Right. Yeah. So there's sort of two debates to have, right? Like, should there be property rights, period? And then should you take like the hardcore libertarian view of property, right? And I'm pretty hardcore, but that's sort of like harder to defend than just the idea that there should be some property. Yeah. So if you take a real utilitarian rationale, first thing I want to say is like, like the view that I'm entertaining, fairly sympathetic to, it would not be that it's just sort of like a compromise that we pretend that there are property rights or something. Like, the view would be that no, there are rights of a certain kind if the rules describing those rights are the best of the rules. Like, right. So like it is in fact correct because these rules would have the consequences.
Yeah, that's fair.
And what else was I? Oh yeah, okay. But if you take a real utilitarian rationale, then it's harder to defend a hardcore libertarian approach to property. It's easy to come up with ways that you could modify the rules, exceptions to the rules or restrictions on people's property rights that at least on the surface would appear to promote utility, and then I'd have to like make these arguments that they don't really promote utility. Yeah, but like I do think that there's pretty good arguments for why most of the things the government does that interfere with property rights are actually harmful.
Right. I mean, which I think we have common ground there. Yeah. So I guess. Yeah. So I think this is a plausible line. again, what I still would sort of press is that, yes, I mean, I guess in some sense, right, you want to say that rights are just like a function of whatever's going to whatever set of rules is going to kind of roughly maximize utility, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess in some sense, I feel like that view is sort of much more proximate to my view than maybe like a standard libertarian entitlement theory. Right? Because
Okay, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with it.
It's like I want to say that the rights we have over resources,
I'll ask
whatever sort of
fucking ChatGPT to fix it for me after the stream, but
best promotes, in my view, like a luck egalitarian distribution of resources. So in some sense, there's sort of a parallelism here. So then that I think in a way leads to our sort of deeper debate being, well, it seems like there's sort of two tiers of debate. One is sort of like, what is the normative target we're aiming at, right? You're sort of appealing to a more utilitarian considerations, right? I'm appealing to more egalitarian considerations. And so I think there's maybe a deeper disagreement there. And then, but we then maybe both kind of agree that maybe rights are sort of downstream from that, maybe. So maybe there's actually more commonality there than might have appeared at first glance. And then there's sort of a second question about like, well, what exactly are those rights? And I think in some sense you have a stronger case of like, oh yeah, my sort of rights assignments, like, we have at least pretty good reason for thinking that this promotes utility, right? We can sort of quibble about exactly which right schemes, like, how much sort of social democratic redistribution actually sort of is, utility maximizing. There's going to be a lot of empirical questions there, but at least like you're going to get something sort of market looking, I would say. And in some sense for me, I have a much less of a clear answer. Like mine probably doesn't look like property rights. Mine looks probably less like property rights, but I also can't really tell you exactly how it looks because I do think it's largely indeterminate exactly which rights people have that would give them their sort of, in my view, fair share of utility.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just care about the.
I'm gonna steal some sleep. But when you want to come for my tag steady better with you, good luck. I appreciate stopping by buying grounds with Hezimon. I appreciate the donations as well. They do help me afford stuff like the cell phone plan for IRL streams and the such.
Put any intrinsic value on equality distribution. So one person having 100 units and another person having 0 is equally good as 2 people.
I'm back out of curiosity. What do I do? Some people debate egalitarianism, basically.
People having 50.
Right, so there's going to be a deeper disagreement.
Anything bans for trans kids for minors? I feel like I've definitely answered this before. I don't know, like I feel silly to do a blanket ban on everything. I'm okay with at least puberty blockers in some cases.
That's maybe not like worth us getting into because I feel like, I don't know. I mean, we could, but I feel like that's kind of, we've maybe have less descriptive things to say there.
Yeah, that could go off on a long digression. I have some other arguments about that, but they're sort of like going off on the side.
Right. But yeah, so maybe we leave that there, but but I think that sort of is nice. I feel like that nicely frames at least some of our disagreement. But also I do think maybe there's a little bit more convergence there than sort of the, it makes, okay, well maybe to try to sort of reignite debate, right? I feel like that maybe makes your view look a little bit less sort of like what maybe natural rights libertarians like really want. Like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of sort of people who are otherwise very sympathetic to arguments don't necessarily want property rights to sort of be held hostage to, the sort of contingent facts about which set of rules in fact like maximizes.
Rook, actually.
That may not trouble you, but I do think that's why
what's your perspective on I can't speak onto the debate. I think I forgot his name already. Jesse has been doing pretty well, and I don't see how humor. I mean, I think his point here is correct. Basically, I don't see humor's rural utilitarian justification really getting to the sort of natural rights stuff that he wants. I will say, like I'm not fully aligned with either of them because Jesse's arguing for the more egalitarian grounds, and humor is obviously natural rights ground, and I am a utilitarian, so I'm gonna align more with Jesse in that I don't think there's any sort of intrinsic natural right you have to property, whatever, and a lot of redistribution is justified, and a more egalitarian distribution is justified on the basis of utility, but I'm not going to fully align that we should sacrifice some amount of utility for egalitarian purposes.
I want to say maybe there's a little bit more convergence between our views than I maybe would have thought at first blush. Yeah, I don't know, would you agree with that?
Yeah, like over time I've become more sympathetic to rural utilitarianism. Utilitarianism and rural utilitarianism in particular. And the reason for that, and I don't know what the correct moral theory is. Like, the reason why I become more sympathetic to rural utilitarianism is just sort of like it does a good job of accounting for my intuitions about a lot of cases. Like it just like repeatedly happens.
The idea of gender is unfalsifiable and untestable versus sex, which is. I don't think that's really true. I mean, like, because it's it's true in the sense that any subjective experience is to some extent unfalsifiable and untestable. Why can't the government dictate society on the latter? But I don't know even by why can't. It's just that, like, if people experience gender dysphoria and the evidence suggests that transitioning is the best way to deal with that, then that's clearly something like we should do. I don't understand the question, like, does not I don't know. I don't think the question almost like doesn't make sense to me.
The rules that seem intuitive, I then can see why society will work better if those are the rules. And then I start to think like maybe there's a generalization here, like maybe the correct rules are, in fact, maybe my intuitions are being somehow driven by what I just sort of sense about what would be good for society.
Would you be troubled if it, say, just turned out as a contingent empirical matter that, yeah, say, like sort of social democracy was the best sort of...
I'm assuming you mean doctors. For years, have campaigned to change the wording of laws to be based off gender identity instead of sex. That's, I mean, sure. That's because in many cases, they want the... First of all, it's not what you were initially talking about, which is bans for transgender for minors, but Democrats. But that's just because they think, and is definitely correct in some cases, like trans people are going to be excluded from certain things if the wording is based on sex.
Over, say, more laissez-faire market system.
Yeah, then I would just sort of have a conflictive, right? Because like I just sort of have property rights intuitions.
I'm skeptical of minors taking people to boxers because they cast review. So I'm not well informed on like all the evidence for trans kids, which is why I'm not going to have like a super strong opinion on it. I do think like a blanket ban would just be a little silly. I don't think it's my understanding is that there's not good enough evidence to justify that. Any delineation of a definition is unjustifiable. Example, how would you falsify the definition? Oh, I mean, sure, of the attributes of a chair being the correct set of attributes to define a chair with. Yeah, I mean, well, I would just say, I mean, definitions aren't truth apt. So they're kind of like all going to be, unfalsifiable in that sense, but
it might turn out that they're not explained by real utilitarian considerations, and then I would have a sort of like conflict of judgments. Like some of my intuitions are explained by real utilitarianism, and if some of them are not, then I would have a question about whether I should be less sympathetic to utilitarianism or whether I should change the intuitions that conflict with it. I wanted to make other comments like
it's not a blanket ban. What do you mean? I'm just saying I oppose a blanket ban. I don't think you can consider a ban with a stipulation you need to be over 18 to be a blanket ban. I mean, as it like, I don't know how else to refer to it as. I mean, a blanket ban for the set of people under 18. What's up, half hungry person?
Utilitarianism. And so like one version is, so the right thing to do is the thing that accords with the rules that would in fact have the best consequences if everyone always correctly followed the rules. Okay. Yeah. Now, on that view, it looks like the correct rule.
Oh, also Darko, technically, Easy Bunny's not a conservative, but he is, listen, I have issues with Easy Money's thought process sometimes.
Act utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism itself is a rule. If everybody correctly does the action that maximizes utility every time, then that maximizes utility. Okay, and anyway, you don't want that result. And so the better form of real utilitarianism is it's the rules that would have the best consequences if they were to be the conventional morality, right? Or if they were to be the rules that were socially accepted as the moral rules in your society.
No, it's not. It's a different guy than that.
Do this. That's sort of the thought.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but it's got to be sort of like socially accepted. So like it's not that we're all privately thinking this, but that we know that this is the moral code of ethics. Now notice that is different from everybody actually following it. So there could be a situation where there's a rule that's widely accepted, but that people don't in fact do what they're supposed to. Okay, so like it's widely thought that lying is wrong, but there's a lot of lying. Okay, so yeah, what matters is the consequences of the rule being socially accepted, which is not the same thing as it actually being followed.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, okay. This is an interesting view. I'd have to think a lot more about it. I don't know if I have anything particularly like I don't have immediate like objections or words. I have questions, but yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this was relevant to the example where the person at the ad agency is going to force everyone to go along with his plan. That's good. And you might think so. It might be part of the example that this guy's plan is actually good. Okay, but there's a social rule that says you get to force your coworkers to go
okay, cool.
The correct plan. Like if that's what the rule says, a lot of people are going to be doing it when it's not in fact the correct plan. Right. So a lot of people are going to think that.
For having a firm position in any subject matter, in my opinion, you should research it. I agree. That's why I caveat everything I say so much.
And when they don't, and that's part of why this is not a good rule.
Yeah. Interesting. And so then the thought would be that would explain. So the thought would be that in this ad agency case, the problem is that they're violating the rule, and property rights acquisitions are like doesn't violate the rule. That's sort of the thought.
That's right. Yeah. Like violating the beneficial rules. Like so, there could be a rule that that would allow you to force your coworkers, but this would be a socially harmful rule.
That's interesting. I mean, I still wonder if you could sort of cook up sort of act utilitarian type counterexamples and be like, well, the rule is you don't force your coworkers to do stuff unless like you've got a really strong set of evidence that like meets all these different criteria, right? And such that you only coerce them in like, if imagine some set of like 5 rigorous tests have to be passed, something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Then I think, and then you might say, well, yeah, if everybody followed that rule, I don't know, maybe it's sort of becomes an empirical question, but you might think, well, at least then maybe that's actually what would be utility maximizing. Like that would sort of allow for, really industrious act utilitarians to sort of deviate from the rules. Well, also like, but most people would be like, I can't, I'm not going to mess with this, something like that. And then maybe in that case, you would have a case where the person's not violating the rule.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Maybe can we go like another? There's been a lot of I don't know, like another 10, 15 minutes. What's your time looking like, Michael?
Yep, sounds good.
I feel like we've resolved a lot, or at least like I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. So I don't feel like there's necessarily too much more to really dig into. Well, obviously there's a lot, but I think we're reaching a natural conclusion maybe. So yeah, why don't we keep chatting for a little bit and see where that takes us, and then maybe duck out.
Like 10 minutes left. I don't know what else.
So that would be my secondary sort of fallback objection.
Yes. Yeah. And like I do think that there's a utilitarian exception to most rules when there are sort of extreme consequences. If someone was going to die unless you force your coworkers to go along with this plan, then you can do it. And it might even be that actually, if the company is really going to go bankrupt and everyone is going to really very much be sorry, then it might be justified.
But do you want to say it's justified? I feel like you want to say it's not justified in this case. Isn't that what you want the sneaky case to show?
I think in realistic circumstances, it's not justified. But there could be sufficiently severe consequences so that it would be justified.
Okay, I'm not sure I care anymore about the rest of the stuff. I'm gonna edit some shit for fun time. Let's see. Redirect, add. Oh, shit, what's up?
Are you gonna go?
I'm about to, yeah. Why?
Oh, just thoughts on the pro-billionaire march, You would have been amazing.
What?
You would have been awesome there. It would have been awesome to see you there.
It's true, it's true. If I live in California, okay. I would have, but
I do think it's bad optics or whatever, but the point of a protest is to get attention. I will say my only criticism of them, but it equally applies to all their critics, is that the wealth tax proposal was a one-time wealth tax proposal. So all the incentives matter talk, right? All the incentives matter talk is dubious. Now that said, I don't trust it to be
the expectation for multiple wealth tax. Yeah.
No, I agree. Not only that, if you look at the justification of like the healthcare union, whatever that proposed this wealth tax, they're saying, oh, it's because we're struggling with like revenue and funding stuff. Not because we want more equality. It's because we want to fund revenue. It's like, oh, wait, if it's one time, what are you going to do in 5 years when it happens again? Because you can fundamentally change the revenue sources. It's like, oh, we're probably just going to tax them again. Oh, that's not one time, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Right, it definitely does harm the expectation of future taxes. Unless, you constitutionally make it so you cannot pass any more wealth taxes after this one. Also, I say, given all the evidence that inequality doesn't really matter, why not one-time wealth subsidy? That's what I'm talking about.
True.
Very
I
true.
Want
very
the
true.
highest human capital people to be the ones making the investments. So.
Absolutely. And everyone's saying like, oh, they're like AstroTurf. They're not grassroots. I'm like, I hope they're not grassroots because that proves that billionaires spend their money on good causes.
Exactly.
Right.
Where did you get that from? That's exactly what I said, bro. You're stealing.
Oh, I think, okay, you said that or Hamster said that. Someone said that when we were in VC. I thought that was funny. So I thought it was Hamsters. But if it was you, then.
Well, I said it on stream.
My bad.
VC,
stole the joke. Shamelessly stole the joke. Shamelessly. Very true. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was funny. I thought, very clearly only intelligent people, very clearly everyone else is operating off of emotions. Because no one else in there responding to them mentioned that it's a one-time wealth tax. None of them gave a fuck. For them, it's not about that. So it never was about like, oh, here's a wonky one-time wealth tax that we can pass. No, it's always been about like class war and cringe retarded shit. But yeah. Who do you think? Who would you support for the Dem primary?
Man, I don't know. I mean, Pete Buttigieg is probably gonna
No,
run. And he's
never,
probably
never
decent.
happening. Never happening. Never happening.
What?
Not
Oh, because he's
electable.
gay. Because you hate gay people.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's not Jewish, so I
Horrible.
cannot trust him to like support Israel.
That's
I'm
true.
also filled.
He doesn't. He actually doesn't support Israel that much.
Oh, well, I'm Shapiro pilled.
Based. Yeah, I would like Shapiro. I don't think I'd mind Ossoff, but I did. I got a little sour at Ossoff just because I saw like a clip of his speech where he was doing like some populist like.
No, but I like that. I like the like Epstein. It's not like, oh, the billionaires are like the reason why everything is getting worse and like inequality, wage stagnation, oligarchy, blah blah blah. He's just saying like, yeah, Trump's in office and he's just like helping his pedophile friends, and it's true.
But I saw a clip where he was like, oh, I think he said corruption or whatever is the reason healthcare costs are so high and the reason Wall Street investors are buying homes, and it was some dumb stuff, but I don't know.
Sure. You got to get elected. You got to get elected. I agree, though. I agree. But, you know, Newsom will say it if the donors say that. So, you know.
True.
You know. I'm looking at on Polymarket, and right now, the only two candidates considered are AOC and Newsom. I mean, the only candidates like with the two candidates with the highest probability. And I looked yesterday. I don't know if it's true anymore still, but they're very. So it used to be that, you know, did I tell you about this? Like, you can look at the conditional probability of them winning, given that they're nominated. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Okay, so before you go, I don't want to waste your time. Are you gonna go now, or like, can I tell you? It's like 2 minutes to explain.
You can talk for 2 minutes. It's fine. Yeah, we're good.
Right. So there are two markets. One is who's going to be the Democrat nominee. The other one is who's going to win the presidency. And so imagine, you know, they say you have like a 40% chance of being the nominee, and I have only like a 20% chance. But you are like, let's say, 10% likely to be the president, and I'm like 18% likely to be the president, right? So, or let's say not 10, let's say 20% chance it gives you, right? So even though you have a 20% chance of being the president, and I have an 18% chance of being the president, I'm more electable than you in the sense that, given that I'm nominated, so divide by the probability of me being the nominee, I have a higher chance of getting elected. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So if you look at the ratio between probability of being the president divided by the probability of being the nominee, it used to be that AOC was slightly higher, so that was a big reason for me to favor her. But now it flipped. So it's very equal, but we're going to see where it's going. But yeah, I do have a sense that they're about equally electable. You know, just because they're both like very, you know, a lot of people who vote Democrat will just vote for them, but different people have reasons not to vote for them. So, you know, rural people might say, oh, Newsom's like California, that's bad. And a lot of people say like AOC, that's like, whoa, trans
Yeah, I was
kids.
gonna say it's also gonna be like AOC, super woke, hate the rich, open borders, and then Gavin Newsom, California, homelessness, drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, but they both have like about two thirds chance of being the president, given that they're nominated. For Newsom, it's like 2 or 3% percentage points higher now. But yeah, also it only says for AOC the like rounded value, right? So it's like it flips between 8%, 9%, but it doesn't tell me 8.1 or something. I wish it was, because that matters with small numbers, you know.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
yeah. So I don't know. I try to keep a close eye on that. We're gonna see. Right now, the primaries are not still kicking in. When are they gonna start? Like after 26, I assume, right?
It depends, but probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can usually tell when a politician's doing more press conferences or whatever, or they
Yeah, and AOC is not doing it. So that makes me think she's not gonna get. Not gonna try. Yeah, but I don't know. I'm saying let's try everything. Let's see what the voters want.
She did the Fight Oligarchy tour.
That's like a year ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago by now.
And nothing came of that because all the oligarchy posting, stupid. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? Also, there was a poll about like what narratives should Democrats adopt. Now it's weird to me because there was no Newsom option in that poll. Nonetheless, polling is polling. Let me find it for you.
What's it? Are you talking about the abundance one or the?
Don't think so.
There was one poll that was like, just does abundance or progressive messaging poll better, and the progressive
Oh, that's
messaging.
a while ago. That's a while ago, but yeah. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Do you know? I know who I want to run. Okay, he's not in. I don't think anyone expects him to. There's no reason to think he will. There's a representative called John Auchincloss or whatever.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He when he made a comment after that poll that was like, when you poll the American public out of economics textbook, they like all hate it or whatever. And I was like,
oh,
holy based.
Yeah, I think it's the same guy who talks about. How do you spell his name? I think almost certainly I seen him.
I
think
don't
he
know.
also. I think he was talking to David Pacman like 4 months ago or something, and you know how Democrats will say we will fight for affordability, we will fight for like lower prices or whatever. It's like, okay, you're never gonna get that, or whatever. He was saying the same rhetoric, but he said instead of we're gonna fight for affordability, he said we're gonna fight cost disease. And I was like, wait, hold up, his writing is fire. hold up. he knows ball. He knows ball. So I was like, oh, this guy's a player. This guy is like a hidden econ wonk, like embedded within the populist lines. Awesome. Right. It's like a dog whistle, right? It's like stand back and stand by. It's like we're gonna fight the cost disease, like signaling to the wonks, like sleeper agent. He's gonna get to office and he's drafting up like DBCFT policy. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, the Auchincloss guy is like pretty pro-Israel though. It's like
maybe, I don't know. I mean, all libs are, right?
I think he's more than most Democrats still, but yeah.
Maybe. Auchin.
I sent the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, how do you say it? Give me a second. I'm trying to find if I. Yes. Here we go. Yeah, that's same guy. Yeah, I think that's the same guy. You can watch his interview with David Pacman. See where he says like we're fighting cost disease or something. And it's like good, very good. Yeah. So he's based, whatever. But yeah, right now it's
what's this poll
tell me? Oh, it's just like they pulled on like different narratives or different like messages the Democrats should have, and like the net favorability they had.
Yeah.
The lowest one was like, oh, we should just like make everyone get rich, like prosperity for all. Like that's not appealing. But then you see Beto O'Rourke like type Democrat and fight type messaging, and that's like the biggest polling one. Like a Democrat party that fights for all of us. They don't roll over for big money in corporations and blah 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 blah. And, whatever. I thought it was weird that there was no Newsom option, but it's weird to me because like you look at the top 3 polling ones and it's like oh, big money corporate politics bad. It's like okay. And then the second one is like, oh, the American dream has been ripped away by corporations and power. It's like, okay. And it's like Zoran can do good government. And that's like the third one. But then you look at the top 2 ones and it's like AOC, like oligarchy bad. It's like, what? Wait, what? That's -6. And then you look at like, we need economic rage because wokeness is bad. It's like, that's also badly polling. So it's weird. It's kind of all over the place. Probably more anti-corporate than not. But yeah, weird. Hard to update on this, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wish there was like a Newsom, like, rape all Republicans option. Yeah. But I wonder how good that's polling. But yeah. Ossoff would be an interesting nominee, I think. The guy is just like obviously super attractive. I think that's what we need.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, do you want like I want headlines like JD Vance brutally mugged by Ossoff after Jester Gooting, so spiking up his cortisol levels. I want that.
I mean, Newsom's
You know what I'm
pretty,
talking about,
for how
right?
old he is, Newsom is pretty good looking
This
too.
is like 40 something, 50 something. He has like gray hair. He's got to be 50 something, right?
I thought he was pretty. I thought he was in his 50s.
Yeah, 58. Okay. I thought 40 something. Jeez. How old is Ossoff?
Ossoff's probably only like 30.
38. Oh, okay. I don't know about that. That's a little young. Maybe give him a next cycle.
We just came from
Yeah,
two
you know-
80-year-olds, okay? American people.
You know what?
get
I
ready
support Ro Khanna because I love incoherent politics.
Bro, kill me.
Yeah, not my favorite Dem. Not my favorite Dem. But yeah, I don't know. Anything else? Anything else?
Don't think so.
Right. Yeah, I have nothing else. Yeah. Good chatting. See ya. See ya. Bye bye. Bye, babe. Wait, when's the
Appreciate it. See
UFA?
ya.
When's the UFA tour you're gonna go to?
The 13th.
13th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You gonna see Destiny there?
Hopefully, yeah.
Well, are you gonna see Myron Gaines there?
I kind of. I mean, I imagine I will like catch a glimpse of him, but like in order to like meet him, he sells like actual like VIP tickets to like take a picture of him.
That's so gay. That's so gay.
Yep.
That is super gay. Yeah, it's very stupid. Very stupid. If you do get the chance, like tell him something funny, like say BB, and then it's like, oh, right, something like that. Yeah. I love Benjamin Netanyahu selfie. It's like, okay, nice, very cool. Thank you, Myron. Yeah, that guy
You
is
can
stupid.
pay like $200 to like eat dinner with him afterwards.
What
He has
the
like
fuck?
super VIP tickets for that.
How much for a vegan dinner?
Wow. I don't know. I don't know if he accepts that.
Wow.
Probably would reject you based on that.
It's so fucking stupid. Like, oh, you can eat dinner with me if you pay. It's like, what are you, an OnlyFans whore? What the fuck are you doing?
Bro.
Stupid, very stupid. It's OnlyFans for men. That's really what it is. Well, OnlyFans for other men, I guess, because OnlyFans is also for men. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, either way, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have anything else. So, oh wait. I think it would be funny if like I got a big CSV where I write down all the like Excel file where where I write down all the names of all the like wonk neolib universe people.
Yeah.
Like anyone from Taylor Cohen, Ryan Kaplan, what's the name of the neoliberal podcast guy? Oh my god, I'm blinking.
I'm not. I don't know who you mean by neoliberal
Center for
podcast.
Center for Neoliberalism guy. Oh my god.
Joshua, someone.
Joshua, yeah, something. Yes, Joshua B. Something, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember his first name, Joshua, but
right. He's a great guy. And then we can do like these reels, like these reels where like let's say they rank presidents, so it's like JFK or LBJ. It's like LBJ or Clinton, LBJ or Lincoln, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We can do that with like Taylor Cohen or Destiny. Taylor Cohen or the soy pill. This soy pill probably. That's funny. That's a funny game to play. But yeah,
I put Tyler Cohen over soy pill.
yeah. No, I was just throwing shit at the wall. But yeah, that'd be funny to have. But yeah. And now for real, that's it. So see ya. Talk to you later. Have fun, babe.
Okay, appreciate it. Love you, babe.
Say it back. Oh yeah, you said it back. Okay.
I
Bye bye.
just
Love
said
you.
it. There we go.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Real. See, listen, this is what you don't understand, Horsey, is that they're the same, okay? The horseshoe theory is real. I'm like 80% memeing about that, but I do think that, like, it's hard to know what AOC would do with, like, the stock we have in Intel, for example. It's like, I don't know, she might want to actually, like, do some shit with that. I think she would handle it better than Trump, to be clear. But she still might take advantage of some of those things. Okay, well, anyway, I think you're heading over to Irrelevant on YouTube. Do I have enough viewers on Twitch to... it doesn't matter. But yeah, love streaming. Love to guys watch me stream. I believe I will be streaming again tomorrow. Probably. I'm going to be streaming again tomorrow. I should be streaming Wednesday night. If I don't stream tomorrow for sure, I will be streaming Wednesday night. Because I should have a debate, hopefully, if she responds to me, with one of the girls in the most recent Jubilee episode, with the Democrat person who she, like, did not like USA ID and, like, really like Doge or whatever. So she'll be talking to her. And then on Thursday, probably won't stream, but on Friday, I'll be at the UFA thing. So, yeah. Love you guys. Appreciate it. See you guys tomorrow. If not tomorrow, Wednesday. Hell yeah.